Hey everybody, welcome to Lorebeards 40,000. We are your hosts. Go hi, hello. We are your hosts, and we've got some fun stuff queued up for today. But first, we got to introduce ourselves. Who are you, Norn Queen Alexis?
I am a giggling mess right now. But I am Norn Queen Alexis. I am a Viking reenactress, a Warhammer enthusiast, and a painter extraordinaire. Or sometimes I just paint for money. That's pretty much the long and short of it. I hit people with metal swords, and then I paint their miniatures. I live here in Iceland, and it's great, and I love it. Who are you, Ross?
Hi, everybody. I'm Ross Watson. I'm a game designer and author. You might know me from the majority of Warhammer 40K roleplay. And if you like the lore of Dark Heresy, Rogue Traders, and the Death Watch, I wrote a bunch of it. I was on the US White Dwarf team for a couple of years, and I've worked on several 40K video games. And we're here to talk about something new today. We're trying out something new. Are you excited?
It's new and exciting. It's new and tasty. If you guys get that reference, you're a hero.
All right, everybody, settle in. Grab your recap. We are doing a new type of segment called Lore Court. Yeah, I got
this thing looks
radioactive colored drinks here. So here's how Lore Court works. One of us takes a position, the other takes the opposite. We argue our cases. Like our honor as lore masters depends on it. And then you, the chat, the jury, the eternal arbiters of Warhammer Truth, you decide who walks away victorious from this discussion. Today's case is, dun dun, was the Horus Heresy inevitable? See, we're talking about the galaxy-shattering civil war, the betrayal of the Emperor, fall of half of the Primarchs, 10,000 years of grimdark consequences. Was it always going to happen? Is it baked into the foundation of the Imperium from the moment the Emperor scattered his sons across the stars? Or is it a preventable tragedy, like a series of choices that could have gone differently if one card had just fallen a slightly different way? Alexis is on one side, I'm on the other. I am arguing that the Horus Heresy was inevitable. No stopping it. The dominoes were already falling before Horus ever picked up a chaos-tainted blade. My co-host disagrees, obviously, because that's the whole point of this segment.
Wait, I was supposed to disagree with this? All right.
So light the incense, grab your favorite Primarch mug, and let's find out who chat thinks actually understands the Great Betrayal. This is Lore Court. I need that the People's Court music.
Dun, dun.
Dun, dun, yeah. Da.
So wait, you're debating that it was inevitable. I'm debating that it wasn't?
Correct.
Okay. Just so I got this clear.
You're saying it's avoidable.
Yes, that I 100% think it was. And it all stems with if the Emperor was a better dad.
Well, I think, okay, so we do need to establish a few ground rules first. What I am arguing is that the Horus Heresy as a idea, as a concept of the Civil War in the Imperium is inevitable. Not like every specific action that was taken during it, but I'm arguing that some form of the heresy was always going to happen. So I'm not arguing about individual, like if this changed, if that changed, okay. But there may be some turning points that we're going to have to get into, because we are also starting our discussion, like the point at which we begin talking about it is the launching of the Great Crusade. So the Unification Wars are over. The Emperor has already set all of his moves in his chess pieces in motion for the Great Crusade, and that's where we're going to begin talking about whether that this timeline ends in Horus Heresy or not. Alexis, would you like to clarify your position?
So I still think that a bunch of Primarchs still die. I just don't think they fully unify and cause a galaxy-shattering, super heresy crusade thing.
Okay.
Yeah. But my starting point is just before the Great Crusade.
Okay.
That moment that starts it all, which is the scattering of the Primarchs. I have a couple of points I want to bring up before they go on the Great Crusade itself, and a couple of points during the Crusade, and I have I just wish the Emperor would listen to his damn psychic sons that could see the future.
Ah,
But
all right.
yeah.
So what is the Horus Heresy? It is the foundational myth of Warhammer 40k, a galaxy-spanning civil war set roughly 10,000 years before the current setting, so the 30k era, as it's called. It's essentially the tragedy that shaped everything about the grim, paranoid Imperium that we all know today. The high points, I'm going to try and cover this as quick as I can, but the Emperor of Mankind led the Great Crusade, which is a campaign to reunite humanity's scattered worlds under one banner. He used 20 superhuman Primarchs, which are his demigod-like sons, and their Space Marine legions as his generals and his enforcers. He appointed his most favored son, Horus, as War Master, which is the supreme commander of the entire crusade. But during a campaign on the world of Davin, Horus was wounded and then secretly seduced by the Chaos Gods, who convinced him that the Emperor was hiding the truth and would eventually discard him, like they discarded of the Thunder Warriors. Which, again, that's a very reasonable point to make. So then Horus turned against his father. Half of the 20 Primarchs, roughly half, and their legions joined the rebellion, and the other half remained loyal to the Emperor, which split the Imperium into an all-out civil war, which lasted about 9 Terran years. The conflict is often it's compared to like a fall of Lucifer type narrative. You have the favored son, he rebels against his godlike father, he's ultimately cast down for it. And the whole thing culminates in the Siege of Terra when Horus's forces assaults the Emperor's homeworld directly. Horus and the Emperor fight in single combat aboard Horus's flagship. The Emperor strikes down Horus, but he's so grievously wounded that in the process that he has to get interred on this life-sustaining golden throne where he remains to this day, more of a shattered icon than a living ruler. That is the short version.
Yeah.
And from there,
that's pretty much it.
From there, we get the Chaos Space Marines and all the other crazy stuff that we get. From time to time, I'm going to count on Alexis to tell me to put up a poll to just check and see where you guys are on individual points. And then as we close in on the end, I'll put up a poll so that you guys get to decide ultimately which one of us wins the arguments. To be clear, I'm not personally vested. I'm not. It's not going to bother me that much if I lose. So whatever. Alexis, she's going to take it all very, very personally. So
yes, I am. I'm going to take it as if all of you hate me in the history forever, and my therapist is going to hear all about them. I'm joking.
Right. We're not. So one thing we're not talking about today, to be clear, we're not talking about the real world financial pressure that would create such a story moment. Wes Luce here is letting us know that the game would not sell without it. Okay, right, but we're not covering real world stuff.
I could argue that it would sell even better. Because if they broke up into several civilizations that were all fighting each other, then you could have all of them be super unique. Just saying. But that's not the topic.
Where would you like to? You were saying you want to start right before the launch of the Great Crusade. You want to start with the Death of the Thunder Warriors, is that right?
So I need to introduce a character first.
Oh boy.
Ross, do you know who Astarte is?
I do. She's only found in the novels, to be clear. This is not a core rulebook or a codex character. She is in the novels.
A lot of this stuff is going to be novel characters, except for Erda. Erda is actually mentioned in a codex, which is interesting. I found that out recently. She's mentioned in a Chaos Space Marine codex, but she's mentioned. But anyway. My story starts with Astarte. Astarte was being cast out because she sided with the Thunder Warriors. She thought that the Emperor was betraying all of them because he was, and he was going to kill his alchemists. He was going to kill everybody that worked on the Astartes project and the Primarch project eventually. She was part of the group that made the Astartes originally. She was one of the gene alchemists, which is what they were called, which is super cool. I love that term, gene alchemist or bio-alchemist. I think that's super cool.
Combine superstition with technology.
Yes. Astarte was inevitably killed when she sided with the Thunder Warriors, but she gave a vague warning to the Imperium and to the Custodians about their inevitable destruction. And the Custodians chose not to believe them. But big but before that civil war, because that kind of was a civil war. It was more like an attack, if nothing else. But before that, Astarte could have approached other members of the Perpetuals, which included Erda, Malkador, and the Emperor, and a few others. She could have approached them and pleaded her case. And if she actually pleaded their case to Malkador, oh my God, somebody is calling me right now.
Ha,
Oh, jerks.
bad timing.
I know, right? Always. Hang on, let me just write to them really quickly because this is about the wedding.
Other perpetuals of the era also included John Chromaticus, Oleanus Pius, and Vulcan when he was born, which takes place ways after this, though.
Yes.
Roughly 100 years or so after this.
But if, oh my God, that made me lose my entire train of thought.
So Astarte was trying to speak to the other, if Astarte had approached all the Perpetuals and Malkador about her concerns.
And pleaded her case. Perhaps the Emperor could have explained what he wanted with the Custodians, perhaps not the Custodians, the Thunder Warriors. Perhaps they would have just been the frontline bulwark in front of the Astartes until they all died off. This could have stopped Erda from seeing what the Emperor was capable of doing, which ultimately led her to scatter the Primarchs. Though she was demonically possessed or Chaos did it, that I hate that the books have both of that version in it. So we don't know if Erda actually on her own will scattered the Primarchs, or if Chaos tainted her, scattered the Primarchs, or if Chaos did it themselves and scattered the Primarchs, because all novels reference different versions of the scattering. But I'm going with the one where Erda scattered them. That's where the crux of my argument is that Erda of her will scattered the Primarchs because she was scared of what Chaos would do, because she knew that Chaos would unify to fight the Emperor, and the Emperor was cheating. And with his Great Crusade, before it launched, mind you, Erda viewed that the Chaos Gods would unify against the Emperor and the Imperium and kill all humans, which, that's fair and valid. I think that if she pled her case to Erda pled her case to Malkador and Trajan, they would have listened alongside the Emperor, and the Emperor does listen to Malkador. The Emperor actively listens to Malkador, and it's, out of all the characters in the entire Heresy, the closest friendship that we've ever seen is the Emperor and Malkador. That's it, that the Emperor has. He favors Horus, but he favors Horus as a tool, a weapon, and a son. Though it takes a long time for the books to have the Emperor admit that he cares about his sons. In fact, when him and Arkin Lan, who we're going to be talking about soon,
Hopefully.
Yes, hopefully. When him and Arkin Lan were talking about, oh my God, World Leaders guy, Angron, they were arguing to kill the Primarch, which also would have helped end the heresy pretty early, but we'll get to that in just a moment. So, Erda, knowing all of this, pleading to Malkador, and having Malkador see this, might have stopped the Primarchs from getting scattered, thus stopping the heresy altogether, because if the Primarchs never get scattered, or if Chaos does get involved and only scatters a few of them, there is let's say the 9 loyalist Primarchs somehow remain on Terra. I think that would have stopped the heresy in its tracks, and it would have ultimately changed the entire course of the heresy to begin with. If some of them stayed on Terra with the Emperor because of the Malkador, Erda, and everyone talking and actually listening to one another, that's one of the major things in 40k, is you can't have good decisions in 40k, unfortunately. Everyone makes the dumbest decision possible, and they never call their dad. A lot of the entire heresy could have been ended with a phone call. But this is the first point where I think the heresy could have ended, is if Erda listened to Astarte and didn't scatter the Primarchs.
Okay, counterpoints. There is an audio drama called Malkador, First Lord of the Imperium. And in this audio drama, he is speaking to someone and says that the plan all along was for the Primarchs and their Space Marines to be tools, and the Space Marines were just they were meant to be conquerors and nothing more. The entire Horus Heresy, in his telling, is engineered as a mechanism to control and ultimately eliminate the Astartes once the Great Crusade is complete. So, kind of like the Thunder Warrior Purge. No. So I'm going to argue that Malkador, this was always his plan, that wiping out the Space Marines was always on the table. And regardless of Erda and Astartes' claims to the contrary, I think Malkador would have gone to the Emperor and be like, yeah, those bitches be crazy. We already have a plan. Let's keep that plan in place.
So my version of the heresy doesn't stop that plan. In fact, I believe that the Emperor would have liked to keep some of his kids instead of them getting scattered, and still would have used all of them to conquer the galaxy and then purge the ones that he did not like. So I'm not saying the heresy wouldn't happen. It would actually happen in a way that Malkador wanted it to happen, where he could systematically eliminate all of them with just the Space Wolves, just executing the Primarchs. But it wouldn't be a full-scale, like, when I think of the heresy, the biggest thing that I think of is what Perturabo said, that this is a war of gods and monsters and we just got involved. It is between chaos, unified chaos, and the Imperium. The collateral is just the Space Marines and the Primarchs. If you eliminate the Primarchs from that picture, Chaos doesn't have a champion to put up to kill the Emperor, because they, for whatever reason, cannot manifest a champion of their own strong enough to kill the Emperor.
Well, this is why I think we need to. I think we need to move on to the Great Crusade, because if we going further back from this point, we risk the whole like, well, what if the Emperor just died in the womb kind of arguments. It's an interesting perspective to say that Astarte and Erda might have had some influence over changing some things early enough. I like that approach, but I'm going to stick with my argument that Malkador and the Emperor had this planned out all along, and both of them are famously resistant to outside opinions.
Yeah, but Malkador, out of both of them, is the only one that actively listens to others.
He's less flawed than the Emperor. That is definitely true.
Like, he has listened multiple times to Nathaniel Garrow.
Now, it's fair to point out that this audio drama is not exactly core canon, and I think, you know, if you're going to reference things like Astartes and Erda, though, I think it's fair game to bring in audio dramas and talk about those. So I'm not convinced, but I think it's a strong opening argument, Counselor.
Yeah. I'm wondering if Erda is ever mentioned in the Black Books.
I really don't think so. But so let's move later. Let's move on to the launch of the Great Crusade. All right.
Perhaps we should read some of these super chats. They might be, because this is our first point.
Okay, yeah, good. All right, so we're at the end of like the first point counterpoint kind of part of this.
Yes.
Biofoot 7874, our local fishman enthusiast, he says the Horus Heresy could have been avoided if the Emperor wasn't a dumbass. So no, True. it was unavoidable in all possible scenarios and worlds and continuities.
True. Or if any of the Primarchs called their dad.
One of my central arguments is going to be the profound flaws of the Emperor himself. So I think,
and all of his idiot sons, they're all stupid. All of them.
We love them though. We do love the Primarchs.
Oh yes, absolutely. But 90% of my arguments are going to be they should have called their dad.
Well, yeah. All right, we got one from FA4112. First time, good to see you. I like your Tsarina Katerin avatar. FA says, I think the biggest problem with it being preventable is that the Chaos Gods were always going to move against the Emperor. This is a good point. Maybe not how it did, but I think an Imperium shattering chaos uprising is inevitable. Thank you, FA. That is going to be my argument today.
So, the biggest thing that Erda tried to warn the Emperor about was chaos unifying. That's what the biggest problem of the entire heresy was. Because if the Emperor didn't act as quickly as he did, which is what Erda was warning him of, chaos would still not be unified. They'd be fighting each other as per the norm for chaos. What makes the heresy so scary is the fact that the four great powers unified. Like, that is huge. But that was it.
I mean, I think the Emperor, based on the bargain at Molech, which is something we have discussed in the 40K Mysteries episode, which happened before this, I think he knew that risk. I think he was aware of the risk.
Yes, the Emperor, again, is incredibly stupid. Like, keep in mind, we're talking about a character that is absolutely far beyond our understanding and plans for tens of thousands of years into the future. If he thinks that this was because he does have this conversation in the stories themselves. He talks about, he's talking with, I think it's Trajan Valoris, and he brings up the example of a child drowning in the water that's fighting you. Like, it doesn't want to be saved, but you still save the child drowning in the water, right? That's what I'm doing to all of you. You may not like it, but I know what's best for all of you, is what the Emperor is saying. And it's always been like an argument where he sees a future and he navigates. Oh my god, I have to talk about 40K and time travel. You see, the Emperor technically sees the future, the thousands upon thousands of possibilities, and he navigates humanity through the best case scenario for all of them, because he is absolutely trying in his own way, strictly his own way. I'm not saying it's the correct way. In fact, it's horrible for everyone involved. But in his way, he's trying to protect everybody, and he sees this as the best possible way into the future, which is arguably incredibly stupid when he could have just, talked to the Eldar, unified the people, made bargains with other aliens, talked to the Kroot, got an entire new way of warp travel that involves a bird.
Okay, I'm going to pull a Phoenix right here. Objection! Hold it! All right. First of all, I disagree with the characterization of the Emperor's motives as wanting the best for everyone.
Oh no, he believes.
You said he was trying to do the best for everyone. I strongly disagree with that.
Well, the best for the species, I should say.
I think characterizing him as like a farseer able to see that far into the future is dubious. I think his view of the future is not so much a like prophetic visions, although he might, because he is the strongest human psyker. I'm not saying that's impossible, but I'm saying instead, I think what he's seeing is instead his own desire for what the future is going to be, what he wants the future to be for humanity. And there's plenty of evidence to suggest that whatever the Emperor wants is not necessarily what's best for humanity. It's what's best for the Emperor. Now, what's best for the Emperor may align with what's best for humanity for a period, but I don't believe it is the same thing.
I do want to just address this comment really quickly.
Getting gleeful.
I am currently looking at the comments. Just comment it again, and I will get to it. I promise.
He's saying he's having some trouble with doing a super chat. Says it took his money, but he didn't post it as a super chat. I don't know how to handle that. Do we have a mod in the chat? If we do, maybe that's the best answer to handle that.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Ice Veins! Good old Ice Veins. Good to see you, sir. Ice Veins and I played through Space Marine 2 together, actually, Alexis. He was on my team.
As we
went through the... Ice Veins says, I believe that if the Emperor involved the Primarchs, explained the Webway project, and counseled his most troubled sons, it could have gone entirely differently.
Yeah, if the Emperor was a good dad, that's gonna be one of the big things that I'm going to talk about is if the Emperor actually listened to anybody.
Fair enough. And we've got Jonathan King is a member for 7 months. Thank you so much. Never let the brothers have a common enemy.
And
So
then,
this is getting gleefuls here. He says, "Do
yep.
you want me to set up the fan suggestion thread from that Sunday suggestion?" Sure. If so, what one per post or two per person? I think is what he's saying.
I would say message us afterwards so we can talk to you about it.
Sure. Yeah, hit us up on Discord. I would love to see it set up
Mhm.
somehow. But it's got to be, you know, if I remember what he's talking about, it's about the fans submitting their own armies for us to look at in terms of lore, their armies and heroes. I believe is what I think, if I remember right. Okay, so that was your first post. That was now let's move on to post Great Crusade, to the actual. It's launched. The Primarchs are as we know them, but they have been reunited with their legions.
Mhm.
We are now out amongst the stars, conquering the planets. I am going to say that I think
There's one big one that I do want to mention.
sure, sure, for sure. But I'm going to say this. I'm going to say first of all that the biggest problem with the Great Crusade, as to the inevitability of the heresy, is in fact the imperial truth. If you remember, the imperial truth is the philosophy or creed that is trying to be spread by the iterators amongst the exploratory fleets. This is all again organized by Malkador again, so
Who
definitely part of the
quickly
plan.
changes his mind about that after seeing a living
Yes,
saint, mind you.
he does. He does. But the Great Crusade enforces the imperial truth, which is an atheistic, anti-religious doctrine, and it it suppressed any kind of knowledge or understanding about psychic powers and the warp. And this left the Primarchs and the legions with almost no cultural or spiritual framework to recognize or resist chaos corruption, because they've been told to deny any truth about the dangers of the warp. Now, you could argue Magnus had some understanding, but clearly not enough. So I
Yeah,
so this is what I'm laying out as my point, is that the imperial truth is one of the things that makes it inevitable, makes the heresy inevitable.
oh, oh, I think that's a good one. Hmm.
Now we know why. Like supposedly, we don't actually know why. We have theories on why. This is from the novels, but it is never stated as outright fact. It's only stated as like supposition. That the theory was the emperor was trying to starve the chaos gods of worship by making sure humanity didn't know about them, and that ultimately he was going to move us all into the webway anyway through the webway project, and then we wouldn't have to worry about even contacting the warp because the webway is apart from it.
Which is weird when you consider that the beacon of the Emperor, the light of the Astronomicon, is where human souls that are devoted to the Emperor go, and they're kind of safe in a pseudo deathless.
That may have been before he transformed into an actual divine god, though.
Yeah,
So we have an episode on the Power of Faith where we talk about the Emperor's divine nature, like how that may have happened. So go check that out if you want to learn more.
so the imperial truth leading to the heresy no matter what. Well, there is a very, very popular saying in the Imperium, ignorance is my shield. And in some iterations of demons, I can't say all because they don't write demons consistently. Demons can be defeated by sheer ignorance. By denying their very existence, you can defeat a demon. Now, whether or not the Emperor was trying to set this up is, well, no, he wasn't. Is the answer to that. Um, so I don't really have a counterpoint to state that, like, oh no, that I mean, the best counterpoint I could say is that if the Emperor was worshipped as a god, he might have become more powerful during the heresy, thus strong enough to defeat the Chaos Gods and defeat Horus. But that would also imply that, you know, not Erebus. What's the name of the actual Primarch?
Lorgar.
Lorgar. Yeah, the one that's not as important as Erebus, which is super funny. But if Lorgar was correct, which the Emperor himself condemned him, which ultimately led him to be more of a Chaos worshiper. But at the point he did release the Lectitio Divinitatis, um, so I think the argument is whether or not the religion would still spread. I am of the opinion that the religion of the Imperium would have spread no matter how much they tried to suppress it, simply because there is too many worlds, too many people, um, just all around, that they could never suppress everything altogether. And I believe that the Imperium ultimately knew that, and that's why they came up with the Imperial Truth as a coping mechanism. I believe the Imperial Truth was more or less to protect the Space Marines more than anything else from the dangers of the warp, without giving them, blanks or breeding, just continuously breeding blanks to protect them. Like having their own Sisters of Silence would have been amazing. Um, but we do know that some Primarchs were more or less used to fighting warp entities, such as the Space Wolves, which they traveled around with the Sisters of Silence quite a bit, and the Custodians, some Custodians, not a lot, mind you. I think it was less than 100 Custodians on Prospero, but there were tons and tons of Sisters of Silence. I don't know the exact numbers, so please forgive me on that. But I don't know if the Imperial Truth ultimately is a guarantee that the heresy would happen. I think it's a guarantee that Erebus and Lorgar would fall to chaos. But if it's just them, they don't have the charisma to convince Horus. They needed the magic poop knife to convince him. So I'm not sure on that one. I'm kind of, yeah, I got nothing on that. I think ignorance is my shield, is as we got pointed out here, ignorance is my shield is 100% copium. But then again, looking at a demon out of Slanesh and saying begone thought works. So
Begone thought.
begone thought, and the demon just out of existence.
All right, so I think the Imperial Truth is a strong argument for the inevitability of it, because there wasn't any defense.
Well, does the existence of the Imperial Truth, like if the Imperial Truth didn't exist, does it mean that the Imperium has defenses against psychic powers?
Well, it would be easier to do it without the Imperial Truth, because you wouldn't just be outright denying it, first of all. And in a universe where the Imperial Truth didn't exist, it is far more likely to assume the Emperor would be more willing to share information about chaos, which he did have.
Yeah, we know he shared with the Lion, Lehman, and potentially Magnus in that one story where Magnus and him like meditate together.
Well, he's definitely not clear about it with Magnus. It's very
No.
nuanced. Like, yeah, there's things out there you probably shouldn't mess with, and like that. He famously did not give him nearly enough perspective and advice on the subject. I think we can fair to say. All right. So what's your next point you'd like to cover, or do you want to go to the fans to see how we're doing so far?
Yeah. Let's see. Let's put up a poll whether or not the Imperial Truth or the Imperial Faith is more important to the setting. Because both of them exist because of each other.
True. All right, so the poll is now live, so everybody can vote on that one. For the lore seekers, because we want to keep you guys involved in this discussion. You are the jury, so we have to make our case.
Mm-hmm. Now, I think that the Imperial Faith was ultimately planned. As weird as that is to say, I think that Malkador may have known that it was going to spread and simply took their figurehead and protected it. And he has a line that he says to Garrow, where Garrow's last mission is to go and save Euphrates Keeler. And he says, at this point, Garrow isn't working for Malkador. Garrow is just outright being like, no, I'm not working for you. And Malkador says to him, you're always working for me. I know everything about you. I can control you if I want. He doesn't say that exactly, but he basically says
But he
that.
could. He definitely could. We have an
Yes.
episode on the most powerful psychers, and Malkador is definitely powerful enough to just be like, guess what, buddy? You're doing it.
But Malkador does convince him on to go and get Euphrates Keeler, and he does warn him that it's kind of a one-way trip. Like, that's it. This is the end of your story. Malkador lets Garrow go. Garrow takes his Arvis Lighter, which I love that Garrow flies around in an Arvis Lighter. It's my favorite aircraft in all the 40K.
You mean the space dumpster?
It is a space dumpster. It's my favorite space dumpster. But he flies out. He gets Euphrates Keeler. He fights against Mortarion. He stalls Mortarion momentarily. And ultimately, it's what Jagatai needed, because he needed to rally his forces. And Euphrates Keeler is put behind the walls, where she ultimately talks to the guy who could make the virus bomb that could kill every Space Marine and every Primarch, which it might be contained within the Black Vaults. We don't know yet.
All right. Well, yeah. I would like to go to another point then.
Alrighty. I like that it's completely tied.
It is currently completely tied.
Which makes perfect sense, because both need each other to exist, because the Imperial Truth needs faith. Well, the Imperial Truth ultimately led to everyone believing in the God Emperor, and the uncontrollable nature of faith sparked the Imperial Truth. Because so many alien races were faithful to the wrong gods, were faithful to the chaos, and thus the Emperor made the Imperial Truth to just be like, no religion, no nothing. We need to starve those chaos gods, maybe, and prevent all of that. We need to teach you the right way of doing things, which ultimately led to the Imperial faith. Because you can never truly get rid of faith from people. It's kind of like built into
it was
us.
Never, I agree, it was never meant to be a long-term solution.
Yeah.
But we do have a 50-50 split, so it is perfectly balanced, as all things should be.
It was inevitable.
Thanos is on my mind today for some reason. I don't know why.
Because him and the Emperor have a lot in common.
I mean, there's
Thanos, you state that there is not enough stuff. With the gauntlet, you can make more of the stuff.
Yeah, you can make more stuff.
I'm going to kill everybody.
Half of everyone. All right, so I think my next point is actually about the Chaos Gods.
Oh, we could actually end this poll right now. I think it being perfectly tied is beautiful.
Fair enough. So the next point I want to make is actually about the Chaos Gods, because the Chaos Gods are not just bystanders in the Horus Heresy. They are actively, specifically targeting the Civil War to begin. They want this to happen. Okay. Horus became their champion to get rid of the Emperor, because according to what we know, the Emperor is anathema to chaos itself. He is literally the thing that they hate and fear.
Mm-hmm.
So the heresy is not just a bunch of Primarchs and humans and the Emperor making choices. The ruinous powers are also at the table, and they have their own cards to play. So I have a feeling that, given how powerful the Chaos Gods are, that even if you do forestall the heresy for a while, that eventually they will find a winning hand and deal themselves into a version of the heresy. I'll even stipulate within 100 years. I think they can make it happen within 100 years of the actual date.
So we do know that they're okay. So how to explain Be'lakor?
Be'lakor, you're like the appendix of 40K.
So, all right. Chaos does have a champion in fantasy. and the fallback option for chaos and fantasy is Be'lakor.
Are you saying Archeon is the Everchosen, the one you're talking about, right?
Yeah, Archeon the Everchosen, and then Be'lakor is the backup.
Okay.
In 40K, there is no backup, potentially except for Luther. Because Luther was selected by all 4 Ruinous Powers, and he was super enhanced when he fought. Well, we don't. This could all change because the book of that exact fight is coming out soon. So this is based on older lore, okay?
As of July 29th, 2026, this is what we know.
Yes, because we're about to get the Scouring books, and in the Scouring, Lion flies back and has to deal with Luther, which is super cool. But in older lore, Luther is the one that's hyper enhanced and everything, but he's just a Dark Angel. In fact, he's not even a trusted Dark Angel because Dark Angels aren't trusted at this point. Because even the 2 closer brothers to him don't trust the Dark Angels, which is the Blood Angels and the Ultramarines when they formed the triad. I forget what it was called. But they tried to set up their own mini empire, and then Lion was just like, "I'm going to blow up your mountain range because your mom said so." But Be'lakor could have been the secondary backup Abaddon. Although, arguably, it could have been Draknion. Draknion was a demon strong enough to wound the Emperor. And there was only a couple of demons in the setting a couple of things in the setting that wounded the Emperor. Erlak Erg, Horus, Draknion wounded his avatar, which I don't know if that fully counts, but I'm putting it up there, damn it.
Yeah, we know Ascended Horus could hurt him. We know that Erlak Erg could hurt him, and we know that there's other possibilities, like the Athamake probably could have hurt him as well.
Maybe the Red Angel, and I'm talking about the Red Angel, the demonically possessed space marine Red Angel.
Yeah, not the nickname for Angron
or Sanguinius, or the other Red Angel, or the Red Angel Demon Prince. They use the name Red Angel a lot.
Sanguinius is the Great Angel. I don't think they use the Red Angel for him, but that again, I think it was used at least once though for Sanguinius, and probably by mistake.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right that it's confusing. You're right that it's confusing.
But I went off on a tangent. What was your point again?
My point was that the Chaos Gods being active players at the table meant that the heresy would be inevitable within at least 100 years of the time frame.
Okay. If the Emperor started the crusade, the Great Crusade, Chaos did unify once he became a problem. There is a chance that if the Emperor... Oh, how do you defeat a unified Chaos? Well, if everyone listened to the damn Imperial Truth, maybe.
But starve them out.
That's an inevitability. If Leman Russ was the one sent to deal with Lorgar rather than Guilliman, and it was just sent to execute him, that could have stopped a unified Chaos from growing as strong as it did. Because a unified Chaos needed Horus.
Right, but it's not Lorgar who does it, though. It's Erebus.
Oh, yeah, sorry. See, the 2 characters are interchangeable, and I swear that GW mixed up the names when they wrote them. Because Erebus sounds like he should be the Primarch with how important he is. Erebus. Sorry, my bad, Erebus. If Erebus and Lorgar and the Word Bearers were just killed off, just executed by the Space Wolves for their heresy, and if the Emperor actually was, smart enough to look into that future, instead of looking into the future once and just being like, yeah, that's a good idea, I'm never going to do this again, the potential for unified Chaos to actually beat the Emperor at that point would be lessened. But I do think that the Rune Storm was inevitable. I think Slaanesh, being as powerful as she was during the Great Crusade, the inevitability was always there. Though the writing of it okay. We're assuming that all right, hang on. I gotta think about this. Okay.
It's okay. Calm down. Take a breath.
So we are assuming that all of the written work of today is written as though everything that was written down in the books was always planned, right? And the Horus Heresy wasn't just made up as they went with
Right.
other things that
We're
happened.
right. We're ignoring the real world evolution of the story and focusing on the in universe version of the story, which at this point, the in universe version is the black books and the novels, and that's how we see the Horus Heresy.
Okay, so because that's there is some setup then, because then we know that Slanesh is the most powerful of the Pantheon at that moment, because she just got born, she just ate all the Eldars, a few,
And
maybe
they're
few,
gods.
yeah, and they're gods. So inevitably, I think that Slanesh would have still gotten Fulgrim. Um, no matter what, I think Fulgrim would have been their second choice. Uh, now, would Chaos fully unify if they didn't have Erebus and didn't have uh, uh, if they didn't have Horus? Is my big thing. My counterpoint is if they didn't have Horus, I don't think they could properly unify long enough without fighting each other.
Okay, I mean that's a solid point because if Horus is out of the picture, which is I think your argument,
Yes,
um,
Erebus is removed, thus Horus never falls to chaos.
it's worth pointing out we have a whole episode on Erebus. It's worth pointing out that Erebus was already a chaos worshiper when he joined the Legion of the Wordbearers. So
Yep.
even as like a young child, Erebus was like, oh yeah, hell yeah, chaos. Uh, One of the reasons why the Wordbearers, in my opinion, were inevitably on a path to corruption was Erebus and the fact that he was the seed of darkness within them all along. But all right, so let's take him out of the picture. Let's take Horus out of the picture then, because he's not going to be the guy without Erebus.
Mm-hmm.
Fulgrim does make a lot of sense. So does Mortarion as a possible successor.
Mm-hmm.
Angron,
Technically, so does Luther because they did choose him according to older lore. I want to specify this that is in like one book that
right.
GW never references anymore.
It's fair to say that there are other possibilities. I mean, if you take Horus out of the picture, he could be replaced by Fulgrim. He could be replaced by Mortarion. He could be replaced by Kurz. He could be replaced by Angron. He could be replaced by Magnus. There's a lot of things about there's a lot of ways that the Chaos Gods could still get their hooks in, and even if it's not a singular guy, like you could have a squad of Primarchs rock up on the Vengeful Spirits, where it's Fulgrim empowered by Slanesh and Angron empowered by Chaos and Mortarion empowered by Nurgle and Magnus empowered by Tzeentch, and all four of them jump the Emperor, and it would probably be a very similar outcome.
Yes, that is assuming that they all work together.
The Chaos Gods work together to empower Horus, so I mean it's
They
possible.
did. But
It's
if they
possible.
all had a champion at that point, because we do know that after the again, this is all written out of sequence, but we're assuming that all the writing was always meant to, like the real world stuff is that technically 40K was written first and then Heresy was written, but also at the same time they started exploring the Eldar. So there's all these conflicting stories about what's actually happening. But if we take the lore as it is, we do know that the four champions of chaos don't like each other, but they will serve under Abaddon.
Well, my counterpoint, my argument is to the opposite: is that the four guys that we talked about, Fulgrim,
Mm-hmm.
Mortarion, Magnus, and Angron, they are Primarchs who have worked together. Canonically, during the Heresy, they did in fact work together. And in order to defeat the Emperor, they only need to work together for a very short period of time. They don't have to be buddies forever, just for like one day if we really wanted to make it happen. Is it more likely that they could win as opposed to Horus? I call it a wash because you have the numerical advantage versus Horus being empowered all at once. So
Yeah,
I think it's just as likely to still succeed with those four guys than without it.
I I don't think it would fully be a Horus heresy at that point, but because not, but you know what I mean. I think it
Sure.
would break down into, instead of just one climactic battle like the Horus Heresy, it would be several battles of built up forces versus the Imperium. Instead of one, there would be four unified, but Pro Turbo would not work with any of them. And without Perturabo, they wouldn't have the method of sieging the Imperium.
Well, he did
So,
work with them we have evidence that he would. He would need to have the right motivation.
well, he
Right?
needed Horus to tell him to.
Right. I mean, that's, for example,
Because he
I'm just
doesn't,
saying,
he flat out does not like Fulgrim. He hates Fulgrim.
true, but when it comes to Perturabo, he hates Dorn more than he loves
Yes.
his buddies. So he's going to do it anyway. It's my argument.
That's fair. That is fair.
Why don't we look at some super chats? We've got quite a few coming in.
I'm just going to drop everything all over the place. Don't mind me.
Are you all right? Is everything okay?
I have my paint stuff all spread out across my desk right now, and it's in the worst possible spots in the history of forever.
Yeah, be careful there.
Yeah.
All right, Biofoot 7874 says Bell Endicor versus the Emperor, a classic incompetence duel.
Not for nothing, Ross, but if Bellicor was removed from 40K, we'd lose nothing.
Very little, yeah.
He's such a nothing character. Like, his big moments should have been in the Heresy. He should have been the one to try to fight Abaddon.
Imagine if it was Bellicor instead of Samus.
It should have been.
Yeah.
Or Kabanda. Instead of Kabanda, it should have been Bellicor.
Well,
like,
this is why we call him the appendix of 40K.
I do like that he's more important now. I do get that. I always make the joke that he finally won a battle, didn't know what to do, and left. He technically was defeated on the Rock and was banished. But at the same time, I just imagine he's just like, holy crap, I won. Right, yeah, I think Bellicor needs... What they could do with Bellicor is actually form a new... Like, the Shadow Legion should actually be more prominent as the... Like, this is outside of everything, and I do apologize about this rant, but this is a slight rant that I wanted to go on for a very long time.
All right, go off.
Bellicor and the Shadow Legion should be 40K specific demons. And it should have been the thing that GW has always pushed for with 40K, and they should have been a mix of cyber demons and like shadowy monster demons. And they have like squads that look like the four pantheons. And then you include the greater demons for making your specific gods. The greater demons should have been the dual kit for like Old World, AOS, and 40K. But if you want specific god units, yeah. Anyway, rant over.
All right. We got this super chat from, by the way, I should point out, I don't disagree that Bellicor could have been better integrated into the setting. And I actually kind of like where you were going with that idea. That was a pretty good idea. All right, FA4112, welcome back. They say, what if through chaos machinations, the Emperor was exposed as a fraud to the Mechanicum? Instead of a huge Space Marine uprising, there would be a Mechanicum one.
But was he a fraud to them?
So, fun fact, there is an event called the Schism of Mars, where half of Mars fought against the other half, and this element is part of it. I would really love to discuss it. It's one of the topics I keep wanting to bring up on the polls. Schism of Mars is really important, but basically, this kind of did happen, although not exactly the way you pointed it out. The Mechanicum ended up fighting itself. Basically, Mars was tangling against itself during the majority of the Heresy. There were elements of the Dark Mechanicum that were with Horus on his drive to Terra. There were elements of the Dark Mechanicum on Istvan 3 and 5. But
what is the name of the Archmagos at the time?
Kelbor Hall.
If Kelbor Hall,
High Fabricator, yeah,
High Fabricator Kelbor Hall. If he was chosen by the four Chaos Gods, that would have been sick.
Yeah, well, he did lead the pro Horus faction in this Schism of Mars,
right?
So, and partially because the thing with Kelbor Hall, he was never fully comfortable with the ideas of the Emperor as the Omnissiah, but more than that, it was about the loss of autonomy. Mars had been doing its own thing forever, and when the Emperor got involved and they signed the Treaty of Olympus and basically integrated the Mechanicum and the Imperium together, it really rankled him. It ground his gears, you might say, to the point where when Horus showed up, it was like, listen, if you fight for me, I will make Mars entirely autonomous. And Kelleher was like, that sounds great. Let's just do that. But yeah, I would love to discuss this more because the Schism of Mars is fascinating, and I think you would really enjoy it.
Yeah.
All right, Friend or Trainer says there's a conversation about avoiding the Horus Heresy, but it really seems that the Boris Heresy was inevitable.
Is that Boris Foe?
Belisar. Yeah, I can't remember the guy's name. Basilius Foe.
Basilius Foe.
Yeah, is that what you're talking about, Friend or Trainer?
I have no idea because I don't know if Boris Heresy would have happened. That sounds very Russian.
If you're curious about Basilio Foe, he is in the episode we did on the greatest 40k mystery. No, the Dark Souls of Terra. That was the episode, the Dark Souls of Terra.
Yep.
So go check that out. He is a fascinating character, Basilio Foe.
I do really like him. I love the idea that he could just kill everything.
Mornington Crescent asks, Be'lakor in 40k is the part of the Emperor that was used in the pact with the Chaos Gods. Therefore, he always existed. This is his headcanon, specifically Mornington Crescent's headcanon.
But that would make Be'lakor interesting in the setting.
That would actually be a pretty neat twist. Would be that the Be'lakor is somehow connected to the Emperor's pact on Molech.
Do you know what Be'lakor should be? If you want to make Be'lakor super interesting, make him the Dark King. Make him the evil part of the Emperor.
That would require a lot of retooling of Be'lakor. But
yes,
that would be basically erasing the current Be'lakor and creating a whole new Be'lakor. But
oh no, the 3 paragraphs. Dang it.
I'm just saying, I don't mind that interpretation though.
Actually, chat, can you guys help me out? Was Be'lakor ever in a novel that wasn't with the Dark Angels? This is a legitimate, and I'm not talking fantasy or AOS. I'm talking strictly 40k Be'lakor. Was he ever in a novel that didn't involve the Dark Angels? Because I don't think I've ever read a novel with Be'lakor in it.
And we've got another one from Friend or Trader who says, what would happen? Horus dies, and Archeon, jumping through realities, fresh off destroying the old world, finds his way into 40k. Then the true Ever-Chosen blows up the 40k reality and moves on to face Sigmar.
I mean, in all fairness, the Ever-Chosen did win in his setting. Slaanesh ultimately won in the end times and everything. I will always argue that Slaanesh won. That she gorged herself on everything in the history of forever. She killed the other Chaos Gods potentially, but they're back. As far as I know, I don't know anything really about fantasy. I know that I really like playing lizards.
So my admittedly brief Google search indicates that the most 40k novel thing that Be'lakor ever got was a audio drama called Ahriman the First Prince, where he plays a notable role. And apparently, I don't see that he appears in any other books, but I could be wrong.
I know the Dark Prince was mentioned a couple of times, which is a title for Be'lakor.
No. Dark Prince is Slaanesh.
Oh yeah, no, I meant what is Be'lakor's nickname? He has it in 40k too.
Oh my god, I don't know the nickname of Be'lakor besides the.
Yeah, sorry about that. But yeah, an Ahriman novel is pretty cool. That's pretty neato burrito.
Sebastian Muller says the Horus Heresy was the friends we made all along. Thank you, Sebastian Muller.
I actually do like calling it the Horus Heresy because first prince. Yes, because he is the first demon prince ever. And according to Games Workshop's licensing, only humans can become demon princes, which is totally not a rule for their lore, but is definitely a thing, which means that Be'lakor was a human at some point.
All right, so I would like to take the opportunity to cross-examine the witness Alexis.
Okay.
I'm going to argue that the Primarchs, as they are, make the Horus Heresy inevitable. And I'm going to start with Fulgrim.
Oh, I have a counterpoint to Fulgrim as well.
Okay, but I think Fulgrim was defined even before he fell to chaos by his obsessions and specifically his obsession with perfection, and the way that he pushed himself and his legion to constantly escalating extremes. Okay. I'm going to say that this made him very uniquely vulnerable to Slaanesh, and the finding of the layer blade, which is probably engineered by Chaos. I mean, I'm willing to argue that.
I would agree with that, honestly.
But that happens completely separate of any other factors. The Emperor didn't order him to go there. None of the other Primarchs were present. It was just basically him and his guys, and the decisions he made specifically lead to his downfall.
If Eldred knew about the lair blade, why didn't he just destroy it?
That's the closest thing we get to an exterior factor is Eldred Ulthran trying and failing miserably to talk him out of it.
Like, there's a whole, like, Eldred has made some silly moves. Trying to convince Fulgrim is actually a good move because from his perspective, what he saw from Fulgrim was honorable. He did not know that he went to Lair. That's one of the big things. It's somehow the third most powerful psyker in the entire setting didn't just go, that's a demon prince in your sword, or a greater demon in your sword. Dang it. Like, instantaneously, just going, big demon, kill it.
We have an episode on Eldred Elthran and how most of his well-intentioned schemes fail.
Now, granted, Slaanesh demons are notoriously sneaky around Eldar because they like luring them in and everything. So, there stands to reason that that demon could have just been, hiding somehow. But from Eldred's perspective, he wasn't really an enemy. He was going past maiden worlds that were still there. He was only destroying planets that were deemed that were controlled by aliens, or as Eldred saw them as aliens, humans that weren't compliant and other species that were not Eldar. And I could see the reasoning for trying to talk to him. But the second he saw the lair blade, he flipped out and had an avatar with him. I'm just wondering, was that avatar hiding behind a rock?
Right?
I mean, you can't just summon an avatar immediately unless you're your brain.
It makes no sense because the avatar, it's described that the avatar is always filling Eldar nearby with the desire to kill, with the desire to make war, with the desire for murder. So it couldn't have just been hanging out in the background during a diplomatic discussion. That just wouldn't have been okay. And if it was on the craft world, which you have to assume it was, or sitting in the webway,
then how did
we just need one or two lines.
Pass the craft world.
We just need one or two lines. They just need a couple of lines of dialogue to explain how that whole situation happened, because it's a little weird.
But we do know that the Eldar's lore wasn't properly fully explained at the time of writing the Heresy novels, and most of the writers that wrote the Heresy novels didn't have an encyclopedic knowledge of all lore. They were just like, Fulgrim battling an avatar would be super cool, so they made it happen. That's the long and short of how that happened. But I would love to, because the avatar can't hide as the statue. It's not like a Wraith Lord or a Wraith Guard or something like that, or a Wraith Construct, where you look at it and it just looks like a statue. It doesn't move. The avatar is just there. But I understand Fulgrim, because Fulgrim talked with him. He didn't initially start by trying to kill him. They did have a diplomatic conversation. Now, granted, once the lair blade was seen, the negotiations broke down. I still want to know, what feast Eldred prepared. Did they eat it? Did they eat? I want to know these questions. But there is a moment after he got the lair blade, after he fought the Eldar and everything, and after Eldred told him the future, even though he could have just looked into his past. Psychers constantly forgetting their own abilities is something that bugs me. And then you play D&D and you forget your character's own abilities, so I understand it.
That does happen, doesn't it?
Anybody that plays D&D will realize, like, after an encounter, I had detect good and evil. I could have just seen through this the entire time. And you never think about things as they happen. But there is a moment where Fulgrim could have ended the entire heresy right in its tracks. So
True.
Fulgrim has the Lair Blade, and he's summoned by Horus. And the Lair Blade is telling Fulgrim to kill Horus. Horus's flagship gets completely blindsided. He teleports in, and the flagship is turned this way. Its lances are facing forward. It cannot turn itself in time to defend itself before the lance battery on Fulgrim's ship absolutely obliterate Horus's flagship and Horus along with it. Horus, I believe, at this point was the Everchosen, or
No, he's on his way.
yeah,
he only becomes ascended when he at the Siege of Terra.
Yeah, so right now, what I mean is he's chosen by all four gods. He's not ascended by all four.
Okay, fair enough. Then yes, he
Yeah.
is. That he is, yes, the chosen champion at that time.
Yeah, let's say chosen champion because ever chosen is something from fantasy. So he is the chosen champion. If Fulgrim came in and just lit him up and killed him right there, I think that the heresy from that point on would have broke down into several different civil wars instead of one major war. Again, it would have broken down the champion of chaos, and without a champion, all of the heretical forces would not have unified, and that would have stopped it. Well, it wouldn't have stopped the battles. I'm not saying the battles and everything would have stopped. It's just the climactic conclusion to the heresy would not be what it is as we think of it with Horus fighting, because Horus would be dead. It might boil down to what you said earlier with 4 champions fighting the Emperor, which could happen. But Abaddon would, Abaddon would also be dead, but Horus would be gone.
Here's the thing. My main point here is that Fulgrim is essentially a Slanesh-shaped space marine, and he's just waiting to be filled up because he is primed. He is primed and ready to become that version of himself because that's how his flaws are. That's how his personality is. And without some kind of exterior force changing his path, that's where he's destined to go. Now, we have an episode on Fulgrim and Fulgrim escaping Trazeen, with Fulgrim being the clone of Fulgrim, the perfect clone, and how that could go very differently because there is an exterior force that could give him that motivation.
I mean, the force in this one is the sword itself. Like, I actually think that his fall to chaos was always going to happen. Like, I am right on your side with that one. There is no way he could have avoided it unless he heeded the words of Eldred, dropped the Lair Blade, and maybe went and talked to his dad. Like, hey, I had a magic sword telling me to kill my brothers. Is that normal?
Well, so all right, fair enough. I think that wraps up my argument on Fulgrim. Is I think he is a Slanesh shaped hole in the setting, and there he was always going to get that. That's what was always going to happen to him.
Now, I think that he could have ended the heresy by blindsiding Horus.
Sure, I could have, certainly could have. I'm willing to admit that. Now, I finished my cross-examination. Do you have another piece of evidence you'd like to provide?
Oh, that was my evidence to state that the heresy could have ended. Is that Fulgrim, listening to the Lair Blade, kills his brother in an act of absolute ambush perfection.
See, I think that
greatest ambush in the history of ever.
I think that would have changed the heresy, but I don't think it would have stopped it. I think it would just be different in tone. It would, like I said, it would still be the four guys, but
I think it would have. It might have actually broke the band completely together. Broke the band completely apart. Sorry, my apologies. I think at that point it would have been a contest between the favored champions of each of their respected god to beat one another. And we would have a great game play out in reality because they would want to fight each other. Angron would always inevitably want to fight and kill Fulgrim. And I think without Horus being there to calm him or steer him in the right direction, he would have just gone on a murderous rampage and killed the other Primarchs.
So Ricardo Andre is pointing out that Fulgrim's fall wasn't inevitable if only he had listened to Ferrus Manus. Ferrus was the one who kept him humble. The issue is timing, Ricardo Andre, because the friendship between Ferrus Manus and Fulgrim happens before the Lair Blade, and they don't reunite until Istvan 5, where Fulgrim is fully consumed by the demon and cuts his head off. So there's really no timing for them to have gotten together and figured this out.
He really should not have taken a wrench to a sword fight.
He took a hammer. He took a hammer to. Like, no, actually, no. Ferrus Manus had the sword. No, that's not. No, okay, so wait a second. The Lair Blade is the sword that cut off Ferrus Manus' head, but Ferrus Manus had a sword in that fight. It was the sword that he didn't want to use it. But it was the sword that had been forged for him by Fulgrim. Anyway.
Yes, but the joke is that in the artwork, he brought a pipe wrench with him. Still the funniest thing in the world.
And Ricky Chapman, our local RPG enthusiast, says Be'lakor shows up in an audio drama with our favorite voice he's ever had. He sounds really cool, trustworthy, and charismatic, like a demon should be. I'm assuming that's that Armin audio drama we referenced.
Yes.
All right. Are we finished talking about Fulgrim, at least for now?
For now, yes.
All right. Well, we have once again a split poll. 50-50.
And I think the only way that Fulgrim doesn't fall to chaos is that he heeds the warning of Eldred and enjoys a nice lunch with him and eventually discards the Lair Blade, showing that his will is stronger than that of the demons, but his will simply wasn't at the time.
Ricardo J just points out that they did, in fact, have a conversation where Fulgrim was trying to recruit Ferrus Manus. That is true. That is a discussion that they had. But we know how that discussion turned out. So, I mean, yeah, they tried. It just they were at that point. There was no saving Fulgrim at that point. He was lost. All right.
Okay,
I
do have another one.
Let's go.
Now, this one had to be brought to you by your favorite debate partner.
Yes, I know what this is all about. This is about Conrad Kurz and the Night Lords. Okay.
And he did send me a message that I did bring this up.
Yep. I think we should cover it. Let's so if you will, I'll start with a little bit of perspective. So the Black Books tell us that Kurz was already in the process of treachery. He had already gone and destroyed Nostramo. He was already slaying and destroying citizens of the Imperium just basically for fun. And the High Lords of Terra had already decided to censure him and send other legions to take him into custody or destroy him. This is all prior to and separate from the Heresy, by and large. There is a novel, however, that we need to talk about, because this is the novel that is being brought up as evidence that this may not have been inevitable for Kurz to turn against the Imperium. And that is what is the name of the novel again?
No, I'm not even sure.
I've got it here. Let's see.
What is it called?
The Chair Out Compliance, which is part of the novel Shadows of Treachery.
So I'm going to read his entire comment because he did send this to me and he wants it said to you, and it's a good one. And I like this. So I want to make sure I say his words correctly and junk. So I'm going to read this and I'm going to sound like a robot. Are you ready?
Okay.
All right.
Robot voice, go.
Okay. So 5 years before the triumph of Eleanor on the Chernot Compliancy, Conrad confined in Fulgrim about having visions of the heresy playing out. Fulgrim shared this with Dorn, who then confronted Kurz. This was the last straw for Kurz, and from then on, he was lost to madness. I think he was lost to madness prior to this, but that's because Kurz is Jekyll and Hyde. This events that drove him to destroy Nostramo because he had no hope anymore. Further, Fulgrim or Dawn, neither Fulgrim nor Dawn ever tell the Emperor before the heresy starts about this. Yeah, they don't call home very often. They really should. We know that Dorn did post Istvan because he had a conversation with Malkador about it. because Dorn is afraid, and Malkador pointed out that is because of the wretched, as Kurz was even, how wretched Kurz was even in those days. He spoke the truth, and he is afraid of the truth that is happening. Hang on, because this is a long comment, so I want to make sure I get all of this. The Charnot compliancy was a decade before Istvan. They had 10 years, and at least 5 to 6 on which Fulgrim did not have the Lair Blade to share this with the Emperor. Both were with him at Olenor. They could have shared it in private then to address if the Emperor thought it should be addressed, but they did nothing. So that's the entire comment. It's they could have told the Emperor, and they, for whatever reason, chose not to. I think the actual reason was because, writing, and it would have ended the story, but yeah.
Well, see, this is a very interesting point. The novel does suggest that there was a point at which Conrad could have been talked around, or if he had been treated differently, that he could have acted, that he could have changed his ways. Okay. However, it is also heavily stated in many sources that Kurz's foresight, his prophecy, he saw what was going to happen. He didn't see possibilities. He saw the truth. He saw what was actually foreordained. So you can argue that he could have changed his mind, but there's lore that says he couldn't, because he was already locked into his destiny, because that's how his powers work. So, when it comes to foresight and prophecy, obviously there is some wiggle room. I mean, I guess it's difficult to always say that this guy forever never saw everything correctly, but he did. According to lore, he does see his own death. He sees the Horus Heresy and just says, "Okay, I'm going to go with the flow because that's what I'm destined to do."
Now, I do want to bring up a point about this that kind of agrees with you, because I'm good at debating. But we do know how prophecy sort of doesn't work in 40K. So the Emperor seeing the future, he sees thousands of versions of the future. Tzeentchian demons see thousands of versions of the future, thousands of versions of the past, and in the moment they can be hit. Thus, how Kairos Fate Weaver was defeated by Gilliman. Gilliman just punches him in the face in the present, which is literally a plot point.
Yeah, it's very weird.
Gilliman also defeats the end of all time. So, sure. Granted, he has to have faith to do that. But anyway, just because, and we do know that there are Eldar novels where Eldars perceive the future, and they are some of the best at perceiving the future. And then it ultimately, inevitably, leads them to a Slaanesh demon, which then kills them. So we do know that prophecy and 40K doesn't really go too well. The Heresy tends to write foresight as a hazed memory and doesn't exactly say, this right here is going to happen. It says, hey, this might happen. Woo. But with Kurz, it says, hey, you're going to die.
Well, so here's some things that are confirmed that he did foresee that did in fact happen. He foresaw the Emperor's arrival in Nostromo.
Yep.
Which did happen. He foresaw that Rogel Dorn and Lorgar and First Manus and Fulgrim would all have their own dooms. Dorn's death by assassination, Lorgar crowned in psychic fire, Ferrus Manus' severed head, and this slithering version of Fulgrim. And those are metaphors for what happened to them, but they are strongly accurate. He saw visions of himself dying. And his sons, the Emperor's sons, he saw visions of himself dying in his father's hands, which again is sort of a metaphor for how he did end up dying. He saw visions of the other Primarchs fighting and butchering their brothers, saw Nostromo being destroyed by a lance of purest light. Those things all came true.
Now, Ross, here's the thing that I think Kurz suffers with, is confirmation bias.
Right.
He saw a bunch of visions that were very, very up in the air, but vaguely true enough that anything that you see proves that it's correct, and you never look into it anymore.
Yeah, I think the argument here you could say is that they became self-fulfilling
Yes.
because of his own paranoia. I mean, that's really the tragedy of Conrad Kurz, is he did see what was going to happen, or at least most likely going to happen, and kind of talked himself into doing it anyway. That's one of the core things that what makes him a tragic figure.
Yes.
Although, again, I mean, the dude is a monster who committed some absolute atrocities.
And again, his character is based off of Jekyll and Hyde wins.
Also, see Space Batman. It's impossible to ignore the Batman angle.
I know, but it's more like the Punisher Spawn angle than Batman. But yeah, it is.
Well, I mean,
he has batarangs. Like you can't get around the fact that he throws batarangs at people.
So Batman does have two sides. He has the Bruce Wayne side and the Batman side. So I mean, you could argue that it's an extrapolation of that plus Jekyll and Hyde, maybe a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah.
So the Unremembered Empire is a novel that suggests that Kurz's visions grew more accurate and more vivid, detailed, I guess, as he approached his foreseen death. So implying that as closer to the event that he got, the sharper his foresight became, which is similar to how Sanguinius's power works, by the way.
My comment to this is he saw things that he didn't want to happen, but ultimately he wanted to happen, so they confirmed that he was correct. Again, I think his visions were very much confirmation bias. Even his death. I think when he saw the Calidus assassin, he could have easily killed the Calidus assassin. He chose not to prove that he was correct. But this isn't a debate on Conrad Kurz.
Right. Well, I mean, it kind of is, because my point is that just like Fulgrim, Kurz was always going to be bad. Like he was a bad shaped hole.
Well,
and
I'm
there's
not
like
disagreeing with you on that. What I am stating is that he had there were 5 to 6 years where all of the Primarchs could have simply told their dad what was going to happen, and then the Emperor could have talked to Malkador about this and been like, hey, they know the heresy is going to happen. Let's break the band up so that they don't all unify against us. Because the biggest problem of the heresy was the unification of the enemies. Because if they weren't unified, the Imperium could still crush them.
Quite possibly. It's an interesting thing to consider. Morning to Crescent points out that if Kurz had a vision, say from a chaos god, that he became Kurz's ascendant, he would have done. He was a slave to his visions. That is part of the tragedy, is that he is a slave to his visions.
Mm-hmm.
What he sees will somehow become true, whether he wants it to or not. Most of the time, it's because he does things that move it in that direction.
As weird as it is, it's confirmation bias is so prevalent in people who want to believe in something. You see it with Fox News. I'm just gonna put it out there. It's all bullshit, but people who believe in it want to see that happen. And then when it does, they're like, I knew it. It's the same type of people with like anti-vaxxers. They're like, one vaccine out of these 100 million killed a person or gave them autism, and now I hate it. That's how I view Kurz. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, Alexis, shut the fuck up. And I'm going to be like, yeah, you're right.
All right. Let's look at a couple super chats because we have them on screen, and I will forget about them if they're not just like right in front of me. Josina Question, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, if the Hrud had won, the heresy wouldn't have happened.
True.
Oh, the Hrud. Good Lord, stop it with the Hrud. Those guys are just, they're the this is the Kremlo. This is the Kremlo of Lorebeards 40K, is the Hrud. People bringing it up just so they know, because they know I hate it.
Look, they bring up the Hrud, I bring up the monkeys.
The Jakara. Well, the Jakara are fun. This is a part of the episode where I say, if you like Lorebeards 40K and you want to see more of it, please consider supporting us with super chats. They're the absolute best way to keep more content coming your way because they directly impact both the show and the hosts. We're very grateful to everyone who chooses to support us with a super chat.
Yeah.
Sebastian Muller says, Eldari Farseer, we can see the future, but we will not tell you what it is because fuck you.
What's really funny is, like, Just imagine if the Emperor talked to like Trazine and was just like, "Hey, let me see the past a couple of bit, like a bit,
You
see
mean
how it
Orican?
fell." Yeah, Orican. Well, he could probably talk to Trazine. Trazine could find a chronomancer to do it. Probably Orican. Probably Orican. Um, but like it's cool to see like Necrons. They can augment the past to offset their defeats, but they can only augment it so many times before the time stream is fucked up. The Eldar can see the varying futures, and they pick the best path that they can choose. And then the Emperor's like, "How do I make humans suffer as much as possible while worshiping me?" Hmm.
So in the future, this is our Wednesday show. This is our bonus show for Libers 40K. And in the future, we'd like to do episodes about what ifs and let's builds and what's our third one? What ifs, let's builds. Lore Court is the brand new fourth one. I forget what the
And we
other one
get
is,
the third one, and that's what's
but
important.
there's another one. Anyway, there is a poll coming up. There will be a poll right after this episode where you can go vote on next week's Lorebeards 40K topic, and I believe it is about what ifs. And I think one of the what ifs is what if the Imperium and the Eldari had found a way to coexist, if they could tolerate each other.
Yeah.
So that would be a fascinating subject. If you want to hear more about that, that's one of the topics on the poll that will be going live right after this episode. Tier lists. Thank you. Tier lists. Thank you. That's the other third. So tier lists, let's builds, and what ifs are the other three that we do. Lore Court is our brand new attempt at a fourth option for the Wednesday show. Spitfire. Go ahead.
We'll get to this one first.
Spitfire 703 says the heresy wouldn't have happened if everyone had just joined Chaos. Instead, we'd have a 50-book series on the Horus Reformation. The bright hope future of 40K has never looked more grand than in the 50 books that cover how it spreads tolerance and diversity across the galaxy.
Now, I do want to point out that a lot of the heresy books were written and the lore was still being established at the time. That's why you have titans as large as the stratosphere in older lore, how they're described as god machines that tower above buildings. And then we get the actual height of titans, and they're actually pretty small. Yeah.
I love this comment. Trazyn and Orican's bogus journey to interview the Emperor from Captain Fumark. That would be a great title.
I'd be all in favor of that.
Oh, Emperor, we are the Necron bros here to tell you about Bronus. Jonathan King sends us a super chat, says counterpoint. Trazyn swoops in, collects all the traitor Primarchs, ergo the heresy doesn't happen.
Honestly, Trazyn might convince Orican or trick Orican into going back in time and making sure that the events play out so that Trazyn can watch the heresy 1,000 times again. Because Trazyn actually does like the Horus heresy. He finds it fascinating. He finds it as, and I quote, the only interesting thing the humans have ever done.
I mean, he's got a very specific view of humanity. Let's put it that way.
He does like them, though.
Kinda, yeah. Just not above killing them if they get in the way,
or causing a gene stealer called the uprising. Oopsie daisy.
Yeah, that could occasionally happen. Do you have a counterpoint you'd like to bring up for why it wasn't inevitable?
I do got something, but I have to use the bathroom first, so I'll be right back after
all right, well, that's perfectly fine. I'm going to talk a little bit about Lorgar while you're gone. Lorgar, I think, is another weak link that makes the heresy essentially inevitable. Okay, we talked about Erebus. We know that Erebus is definitely the architect. Fuck that guy. He is the actual keystone. But for Lorgar specifically, Lorgar was, I would argue, his nature preordained the trajectory of his fall, because he was always looking for something beyond himself to believe in. The Emperor was not going to be that. Monarchia showed us that without a doubt, that the Emperor was not interested in being that guy. And with the Emperor out of the way, I mean, what else is there? Especially when you have Erebus whispering in his ear. Lorgar was basically doomed, and I argue he was doomed because just that's the kind of guy he was. Is that he was always going to seek out something to put his faith into. Now, again, like there are possibilities. I mean, you could argue like, well, what if he had encountered Segurak, for example? I mean, that would be a fun what if. What if Lorgar had decided to believe in the Eldari gods instead of the ruinous powers? Wow. Oh, Drazina says this comment is for Ross. The heresy wouldn't have happened if the Emperor realized he created perfection with the lion. I am a big Dark Angels fan, especially the Heresy era Dark Angels. They are the best.
I love
Okay.
it.
I was just saying, I think Lorgar's desire to believe in something greater than himself was inevitable. That was going to lead him down the path, regardless of Erebus or anything else.
It is okay. So there is no counterpoint I could make to that. He was always destined to fall.
Well, I said a fun what if would be what if Lorgar had decided to worship the Eldari gods instead of the Chaos gods. That would have been a fun twist.
He celebrates a Nightbringer instead.
Oh my god, what if he believed in the Satan? Yikes. Yikes. That's almost as bad, isn't it? I mean, kind of in a way, like if you can imagine the whole resources of an expeditionary fleet devoted to digging up shards of Catans and putting them back together.
I mean, there is a character currently doing that in the lore.
Right, but he doesn't have. I don't believe he has the resources that Lorgar would have had at that time.
No,
so it's fascinating to think about, though. We'll have to. That would be a fun what if. I'll have to add that to the list. What if Lorgar decided to worship other gods? But what did you? So, what are your thoughts so far? Yeah, go ahead.
Honestly, I was just thinking, what if Lorgar worshipped Be'lakor, and Be'lakor was made more interesting because Be'lakor was convincing them that they were the gods. But anyway, Lorgar and Gorkamork. Oh, sorry, that's pretty funny. Something that would have stopped the heresy right in its tracks, like immediately. If Erlak Erg just killed the Emperor.
Would that have stopped the heresy? Interesting.
Because the Chaos's ultimate unifying moment was to destroy the Emperor. If the Emperor is destroyed, well, then they go back to fighting each other.
Yeah, I mean, that is a interesting idea. Although,
also, the implication of that is that the orcs actually win that battle, so that means the Custodes are defeated.
Horus is probably dead.
Horus is dead. The Horus's expedition fleet is dead. All of those resources just went to Erlak Erg.
Holy succession crisis, Batman. Devin Urbina, very good comment.
Would Chaos unify to take down the Emperor Erlak Erg? No, but as funny of a joke that this is a very serious thing, because if Erlak Erg actually managed, because we do know that he injured the Emperor, and that is a huge thing. He actually injured the Emperor. No chaos powers, no nothing, just sheer power of the Wa. Just if he killed the Emperor, even if he died in the process, the next successor would be Horus. My counter argument at that point is that Horus would reject chaos. Magnus would have to take his seat on the Golden Throne. That takes away two of the strongest fighters. Fulgrim, I think, would inevitably fall. I 100% think that actually,
Fulgrim, Kurz, Mortarion are basically screwed. Like, so I would argue Perturabo and Angron are always going to go bad.
I don't know about Perturabo.
Without the Emperor?
Without the Emperor, there is a good chance that if Horus was leading, Horus did like Perturabo.
I mean, I don't know. All right, I'll tell you what. I'll give you Perturabo, but you have to give me the other ones. You have to, it's Fulgrim, Mortarion,
Yeah.
Angron, Kurz for sure. Like, and those guys are definitely going bad.
Yes.
Altharius definitely going bad.
Yeah. I would give you all of those as long as I get Magnus, Horus, and Perturabo and Dorn. Because I don't think anything. Because then I have Lion and Gilliman. Like, I don't need Vulcan or any of the other loyal Primarchs. I have the big hitters. Like, at that point, you have two of the greatest executioners, being Lehman Russ and Lionel Johnson.
Morning Cressa says Perturabo might have felt justified because his fortifications would have been wanted and he would have felt vindicated. That's a possibility. Although, as long as Dorn is alive, it's going to be a real tough sell.
Ultimately, what convinced Perturabo to leave Terra was Abaddon. Abaddon telling him that this is not his war, this is a war of gods and monsters. Like, yeah, I think because that was so early on in the heresy, I feel like, well, okay, so Horus would never get stabbed with the magic poop knife. He'd be having to lead the Great Crusade still. He would have to have Magnus going back. He would be in charge of the custodian force. No more custodians could be made. That's it. That's the end of the custodians.
That probably does mean the end of the custodians. Although I want to point out a couple things. First of all, we don't know that Erlacher wounded the Emperor. We know that he was dangerous to the Emperor. We know that.
Yes, he did choke the Emperor.
We know that Horus saved the Emperor's life, and everyone seems to agree on that. So that suggests that implies that Erlacher could have killed the Emperor.
We also know that he choked the Emperor.
There's no real description of the duel between them, so I want to be clear.
No, I wish there was.
That would have been awesome. We got a super chat from Ricardo Andre here. He says, problem about Shrout, the Shrout compliance. It's about Dorm and Fulgrim, not Kurz. So I don't. You may have to explain that one a little bit, Ricardo Andre. I want to discuess that.
I think he did in this comment.
Curse of Perturabo. No, that's not about Dom. Yeah, he's talking about Dorn and Fulgrim in this one. So if you want, we would like to address your super chat. Please expand on the issue there. Would the custodians follow Horus?
I'm not going to shit on the Lords of the Drake. I love and I stand by my love of the Salamanders, and I think that they are one of the most relevant Space Marine chapters in 40K because they're constantly sending 5 to 8 companies to every single engagement that's happening around the entire galaxy, somehow having just enough companies to do that, which is weird. Would the custodians follow?
Would the custodians follow Horus? That's a good question. This is the same thing about whether custodians can still be made after the Emperor. Maybe technically, but they're conditioned. We have an episode on the custodians. They seem to be conditioned to obey the Emperor and protect the Emperor. So if he's not around, what do they do with themselves? There's a major existential and identity crisis with the custodians without the Emperor.
So there is also the possibility that even if you choke out the Emperor and break his neck and whatever, and the Emperor's body is shattered and broken, they might still put it on the Golden Throne. Like, he might be interred on the Golden Throne way sooner. And then, I believe that happens before the Lectitio Divinitatis goes out and before the worship of the Emperor is made public. Right? Erlacher is way before that, right?
Erlacher is very early in the Great Crusade.
Yeah. So there is the chance that a more wrathful Horus might send the Executioner to go and deal with the word bearers. He might also, when Archenland is reviewing Angron, he might just kill his brother because he doesn't have the compassion that the Emperor has for his son. Oh.
Honestly, I did another search. I remember seeing somewhere that Erlacher, like the whole thing with him was like Horus saved the Emperor's life. Maybe I'm wrong about that. There's the novel Fear to Tread. where they cover this, and the Black Book. Which Black Book is it? It is the.
Wait, now I got to look this up.
Yeah, there's other places where they talk about this, but I think it's maybe it's in the Black Legion lore from like Index Astartes or something where they talk about this. There's apparently it's just a very widely repeated idea. Maybe it got stuck in my head. So there's that. We know that Horus fought Erlekirk. We know that. We know that it was a very big battle. We know that. I can say that. I have said many times on the show. I think that Erlekirk. There was a thing where Horus saved the Emperor's life. I still think that's true. I can't find any sources off the hand. Anyway, so the issue, according to your card, Andre, is about the Dorn and Fulgrim were inactive in the issue with the compliance. It was not about. So he's trying to divorce the validity of Kurz's visions from the inaction of Dorn and Fulgrim, and he's saying that's where the change could have happened. Is for Dorn and Fulgrim to tell the Emperor about the issue. If I'm understanding him correctly.
Okay.
Anyway, so this is not a what if about different things. This is about whether the heresy was inevitable or not. So we talked about Lorgar, we talked about Erebus, we talked about Kurz, we talked about a lot of guys. We haven't talked about Mortarion or Angron, but I think I could wrap up and say Fulgrim, Mortarion, Angron were very much in the same. Like I think they were always going to go bad. There's very little to suggest at any time. I guess maybe Mortarion because he got betrayed by Typhus. But Mortarion's story is really about how hating chaos doesn't make you immune. Because Mortarion hated witchcraft, he hated the idea of warp interference, he hated all that stuff, and yet fell to it anyway because of the trap that Nurgle had set for him and his fleets, where Typhus basically made the deal. This is kind of like Lorgar, where Erebus is the true architect of the fall of the Wordbearers. Typhus is the true architect of the fall of the Death Guard, not Mortarion. But I would argue that would still happen, regardless of any other external forces.
That Mortarion would fall?
Yeah.
Or
Mortarion,
that his entire legion would fall?
Mortarion and Angron and Fulgrim, I think, are my three that I just have no. Their destiny is set.
I have a way of preventing Angron, as weird as it is.
For the Emperor to like actually stop everything and pull out the nails?
It doesn't even involve the Emperor.
Oh, okay. All right.
But I do think that Typhus ultimately gave the legion over. But there is the possibility. The only argument I can make that that Mortarion doesn't fall is that when Mortarion finds out what Nathaniel Garrow's doing, is if instead of pursuing him, he actually, did the thing that Mortarion is famous for not doing, which is thinking, and was like, oh, wait a minute, I'm betraying my father. Maybe this is exactly what I shouldn't be doing. But I do think that Mortarion ultimately falls to chaos no matter what. I don't think I can make any type of counter argument that Mortarion doesn't fall to chaos. At best, I think I can make the argument that he dies not falling to chaos at night. But yeah, his whole legion still follows Typhus because they like him more than Mortarion. In fact, that's actually mentioned in Plague Wars that the legion likes Typhus more than Mortarion.
And I say Perturabo was always on the path too. His I think it's almost mathematically determined. It's inevitable for him because it's not a dramatic fall. It is a slow, insidious burnout because he's sent to do all these missions. The worst of the worst garrison and siege stuff during the Great Crusade, and this just wears him down. The most least glamorous, the most thankless crap, while everyone else is getting the glory and recognition. And this bitterness is in his heart. And I think the resentments that he feels, that the Iron Warriors as a legion feels, and this is very well documented. He has a poor personal relationship with the Emperor himself.
Yes. He also gets rid of all of his remembrancers really early.
Yeah, he kills his remembrancers. He replaces his his Terminator bodyguards with robots because he's just like, screw you guys. He's isolated and has no friends, and that doesn't lead you anywhere well. Like it doesn't really lead you anywhere good.
No, it doesn't.
There are arguments to be made. Like obviously, like the biggest point here is that the Emperor could have forged a better relationship with him. The Emperor is a better dad argument, but I have a counterpoint to that. So
there were several characters who could have possibly steered Perturabo in a direction where he felt more appreciated. As weird as it is, one of the only characters to speak out of turn to him and convince him of something is Abaddon. But Abaddon is also fallen at this point when he does speak to him, because he speaks to him during the Siege of Terra. I think, though, if somebody like somebody important like Arkan Lan or somebody of equal importance talked to him early on, or even thanked him, or if he worked alongside the Dark Angels and saw how the Dark Angels were treated and how Lion treated the Dark Angels, he might find a connection with his brother more than anything else, because he treats his Legion much the same way as Lion treats the Dark Angels. Because Lion doesn't give a shit. Yeah, like he doesn't give a shit about them. They're just tools.
Well, Lion gives. I would argue Lion gives slightly more of a shit than Perturabo, but Perturabo again was famous for calling in artillery strikes on his own positions, because he was like, I don't really care about you guys. We can make more Space Marines. I have to grind down this siege somehow, and if I have to spend lives to do it, I'll just do it. Lion at least had like some people he listened to. He had advisors. You could argue he respected Corswain, and he respected Marduk, and he respected some of those guys,
and Cypher,
and Lord
Cypher was,
whoever he was. And certainly Lion had a better relationship with Luther than Perturabo did with the Emperor.
Yes. I think it boils down to if Perturabo had a better relation with a couple of the tech priests. Because one of the major stories about tech priests is that they separate themselves as much as they can from their humanity, but no matter how much of themselves they replace, they can never get rid of it. I think if he had like even somebody with him that can understand him, that he couldn't just kill and get rid of, somebody that had like massive plot armor, he could find kinship in that. But I do think that he's ultimately going to betray. I don't think like if Horus was dead, I think that he would set up his own empire, similar to how the Ultramarines were going to. But yeah, I do think that his fall was inevitable. I just don't think that he would have fallen as much to chaos as he does.
Well, imagine if Perturabo had been paired up with Vulcan, and the two of those guys had gone out and done their stuff next to each other.
Oh my god, yeah, Vulcan would have convinced him. Vulcan would have hugged him.
Yeah, Vulcan would have given him a hug. I think we could. I think that was maybe one way where you could shift Perturabo. Yeah. But absent that kind of arrangement, I think he was always going to be going the wrong way.
I think a side comment by like Gilliman could also do it.
Like, yeah, here I'm actually reinforcing your position here, though, with my statements.
Well, yeah, that's what Perturabo does. He reinforces. He tears down. But I think Perturabo is just one step away from like crying out his feelings and, actually being a better person. I think what inevitably drove him to insanity was he was called in for the Siege of Terra by Horus. He was finally given an opportunity to do something. And Horus made sure that he knew that he was the only one who could do it, steered his hatred towards Dorn, and was like, you're the only one that could do this. And then when the actual siege began and the wall fell, he was discarded. It was just demons at that point. It was just demons and monsters and gods. And Perturabo just left after that. But I think that if any of the Primarchs like really like Perturabo is like the most the biggest man child you could ever meet. He's an angry kid. He just needs affection and affirmation.
He is coded somewhat autistic as well.
Yes, he needs positive affirmation.
So but
but that's it.
yeah, I had to say one more thing about it is that according to the canon lore, the rule books and the codexes for the Horus Heresy board game, Perturabo held his legion in genuine contempt. He compared them to other legions found them wanting, and he wanted the Iron Warriors to be amongst the greatest forces under the Emperor, worthy of praise. But he consistently viewed their failures as extension of his failure, since they were created from his genetic template. This kind of makes a toxic cycle where he perceives weakness in his sons, took it as a personal indictment of himself, and fueled increasingly brutal punishments. The disciplines that he enacted upon his legion are nasty. Decimation was a legion-wide punishment for failure. Whenever the Iron Warriors fell short of his expectations, he ordered 1 in 10 of his legion, chosen at random, to be beaten to death by their own comrades' bare hands. It's described as unequivocal, uncaring, unforgiving, and blind. So that is how Perturabo saw his legion. All right, it's a pattern of behavior. Perturabo treats his sons less as individuals deserving compassion, more as tools whose collective performance directly reflects on him. So, yeah, that is kind of my indictment of Perturabo as a person. Like, I think that's why I say he was kind of always going to go the wrong way. Not because he's autistic. There's nothing wrong with that. Again, it's only implied. It's never said that he's autistic, but it kind of seems that way. But yeah, the way he was treated by the Emperor is really the main thing. Then of course there's the whole, like, I compare myself to Dorn all the time because Dorn does kind of the same thing I do, but Dorn gets all the love and attention from Father that I never received.
You stick your hand in a magic pain glove?
Yeah. So there's actually a lot of similarities between their legions. They do punish themselves for their perceived sins. They just do it in different ways. And Perturabo's way was particularly ugly. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's so much to get into. Like I said that I think Angron's wrath would have always reduced him to what he became. But you can argue the Emperor could have taken the nails out, right? Like that would have been the way to fix that.
Or just kill him. Yeah. Now, I have a way that doesn't involve the Emperor.
Okay.
He famously likes one person more than anybody else, more than Karn the Betrayer, more than any of his legionnaires. There was
Latara
one person
Saren
that he cares about, and that is Latara Saren.
Mm-hmm.
If at any point he had a genuine conversation with Latara Saren about, because Latara Saren is not a stupid person at all. She's aggressive, yes. She is very hot-headed, yes. But she also listens. She also knows how to do combat. She knows how to deal with the world eaters. And yeah, she is a great person, great character. I absolutely
backbone of steel.
But if Angron expressed why he's mad at the Emperor in any way, shape, or form, if Angron had character development, which he doesn't have, which is like one of the worst things about the Heresy, is that Angron is just, his character development is, I'm angry. Why? Because I am. Because my dudes were killed, and I could have been like a really compassionate guy. And it's like, then fucking be a compassionate guy. Nothing's stopping you.
He also had those things put in his brain that made it to where he couldn't feel anything unless he was killing somebody. So
yeah, but he's also a Primarch. He could just will that to not be a thing.
So here's the thing. According to the novels, I think it's also in the core book, the Horus Heresy rulebook, that the nails interacted with his Primarch physiology in such a way where they became almost inseparable. They discussed this in the lore, how difficult it was to remove the nails, and it would require someone like the Emperor's personal attention in order to make it happen, because they had become so intertwined. So yeah. I have to I'm undermining my own argument here by saying this, but yes, I think the nails are not something you could just pull out or get around, even by a Primarch.
Now, I think that if he talked to Latara Saren about what he went through, like what happened, what the Emperor did, Latara could have just said, "You're doing it to your own men. What happened to you sucked. No question about it. But you are doing the same thing to your own warriors right now." Because he did. He did this exact same thing to his own warriors. He has fighting pits. He lets all of his people beat themselves to death. He charges his men straight on into battles that he knows he's not going to win, just so that he can create an opening for somebody else. He will sacrifice hundreds of his, even thousands of his own guys, just so he can make a cool superhero landing at Saturnine. But like, if he talked to Latara, Latara could have directed his rage at the appropriate targets, the ones who were potentially manipulating him, even though Latara is doing the same thing at this point. But, you know, double standards and everything. It's cool when she does it, bad when everyone else does it. He could have broken off from the heresy, realizing what was happening, and potentially seeking out the Emperor's help. He could have gone there willingly. The Emperor, along with Ark and Lan, who were the two that were going to work on Angron, Angron would now, well, the Emperor would now have time to work on him instead of the rush job that the Emperor didn't work on him because they didn't have time to work on him. Also, it might kill him.
Okay. So this is objection. Objection. So here's the thing. The Emperor could have done it. He had the resources, he had the time. He chose not to. And this, I think, speaks to one of the reasons why the heresy is inevitable. The Emperor is awful.
The Emperor is incredibly stupid.
Profoundly flawed is the way Games Workshop describes it. I love it. I think that actually fits very accurately. Profoundly flawed. And in his profound flaws, the Emperor was like, he is still a tool. He's still useful to me in this state. It would not be useful for me to pull him off the front line and fix him. Therefore, I will let this happen until I'm done with the Webway project and I have more time to devote to these issues.
Mm-hmm. But there's also other characters he could have gone to, like the Tech Priesthood. He could have. There's also the potential that he could have just ripped them the fuck out and survived because he's a Primarch. Like if Gilliman could get thrown out of an airlock with no helmet on,
that's. I would, like, when you're messing with the brain, though, you are talking about like literally the most vulnerable part of the body. Now, so
I will quote, I think it's either Amdetsky Bowden or Andy Law. I forget which one of them said this, but it was a Black Library writer. If we need a Primarch to do something, he'll do it because he's magic.
That is technically true. They have the warp stuff within their body, so they can pull off supernatural crazy shit. Angron famously once stopped a Titan from stepping on him, just held it up and be like, no. Yep. And that's a crazy ass feat that only a Primarch could achieve. We got a super chat from Christina Quaishin who says Chaos Equerries are better than Chaos Primarchs. Well, he's not necessarily wrong. The Equerries include Karn. They include Ahriman. They include there are several of them. I should get a list.
Typhus,
get one.
Typhus, Angron, Ahriman, and Lucius the Eternal are the 4 champions. And then there's Abaddon, and then there's a few others. Mariel Sabathiel is on that list, which is pretty cool.
I want to say that he may mean the first captains as well.
So, I mean, yeah.
Because the first captains are sometimes the Equerry is first captain, sometimes they're not. Abaddon, you could argue, is an Equerry, even though I'm not sure that's his actual rank or title. But he's not wrong. Like, broadly speaking, the Equerries are very cool and have very interesting stories. Cor Phaeron is Lorgar's Equerry. Fabius Bile is not an Equerry. I'm assuming he means the first captains, which is where we get Karn and Sing. We get a lot of those characters. Sevatar is a great first captain.
Yep. Well, he's not a Chaos character, but yeah.
No, he is. Sevatar?
Oh, wait, sorry. I was thinking the other one. I was thinking Sigismund.
Sigismund, yeah.
I got those two confused. Yeah. Sorry, that's my bad.
But if you include the first captains, like Abaddon is a fascinating character, who's the first captain of Horus. You got Armin again. You've got Karn.
Are we just talking chaos ones?
Yeah, it's speaking. He says Chaos Primarchs. So
yeah.
Part
of Rabo's guys die, don't they?
The Fulgrim's guy kind of wasn't that cool, unless you mean Eidolon, and Eidolon is kind of cool, but he's not in the same category as the rest of these dudes. Typhon, per Rabo's Equerry was a guy called Forix. He doesn't play much of a role.
Nope.
Sevatar for the Night Lords, though, for sure. Karn, Corferin. There's the Alpha Legion has one, but like again, not really that big a deal. And Armin, but the ones that are impactful are very impactful, and I think that's the point he's making.
Yeah,
those are good. That's a good point to make. Now, we're going to get into our final hour of the show here, and I'm just going to put up a simple poll for you guys as the jury to give us your. We'll let you vote until the very end. We're not going to call it until the end of the show. But I'm going to go ahead and put the poll up for you guys to vote on whether the Heresy was inevitable or not, and we will abide by the decision of the jury. So I'm going to put that up. And in the meantime, Alexis, what is your next point of order about why the Heresy was not inevitable?
Okay. I'm trying to really think, because I think I have exceeded all of mine. There is the whole possibility that Eldred went to Guilliman instead of going to Fulgrim, which could be really cool. I really like the idea that if he sat down with Guilliman, he could have explained it better. Guilliman could have gone back to Terra. But let's see. All right, you come up with one. I gotta use my brain.
All right, that's fair enough. So I have two major points that I want to discuss about this. I'll start with the Imperium in general. Okay, the Imperium in general and the Great Crusade. It's by its very nature is an outward-facing project. It is designed to perpetually be going into to conquer things. Right? It was nonstop conquest across the galaxy. And putting all these legions of Primarchs under this shared purpose worked. Everybody was like, cool, we know what we're doing. We know how to do it. Now, granted, there were some who were slower, like the Word Bearers and whatnot, but they were all still pretty much unified in what they were doing and why. Okay. But even if you pull chaos out of that equation, that expansion will inevitably slow down or be completed. And then what are the legions, their commanders, going to do, right? They have all this martial power, all these personal ambitions, unresolved rivalries like Perturabo and Dorn. So what are they going to do with all that? I think it's a certainty that even if chaos isn't involved, the way that the Imperium went about it is that it would have to enact Malkador's plan and just turn the Primarchs into governors. And even then, they would be playing them off against each other in political games all the time. So it's a powder keg that needs an external outlet, or it will inevitably turn inward. That's my point about it.
Okay, but luckily there is an enemy that is always there and always present. That's orcs. Like, orcs are always there for the Imperium to be like, there's an enemy, and orcs are like, they're coming for us. I think a galaxy conquered by the Imperium is an orc's dream. There's also the idea that the Tyranids could still come in. There is something that could always unite them. The Necrons waking up in 10,000 years. They might wake up sooner with all of the activity. There is also the possibility that Belisarius Cawl figures out the Blackstone Pylon network far before anything, if he's not working on the Primaris Marine project, where he could stop chaos from getting involved. I think ultimately it boils down to, can the emperor make chaos fight itself more than it unifying to fight him? Would determine whether or not the Imperium could stand up. Because the Imperium is not unified. It is a billion trench coats, a billion rats, tons of Skaven in there. You know, the Imperium, yes, yes. But jokes aside,
arguably, the Imperium is the version of Skaven in space.
yeah,
Arguably.
somehow led by Nagash.
Yeah.
But jokes aside, there are several moments in the Heresy that I think are completely avoidable. I do ultimately think that some of the legions will fight against one another. I do think that some of the legions might actually be completely eliminated. I do think that at the end of the day, there are some legions that inevitably fall. I think the word bearers inevitably fall. Mortarian's legion inevitably falls, no matter what. Even in the best case scenario, the best case scenarios for like Fulgrim is that he drops the lair blade, he puts it down, or he throws it out of his ship. He heeds the words of a farseer trying to come to him to explain the fall of their empire to the very thing that he is holding. Instead of just outright going to war with him, I do think that if the Emperor's executioners, the Space Wolves, went up against the Word Bearers, Chaos would have to act. The Imperium would be more knowing of it. With the Silent Sisterhood at his side, he would have easily eliminated the Word Bearers because a lot of their powers wouldn't be working. The Runestorm wouldn't happen. There were several things in the setting that could stop the heresy in its tracks, but it wouldn't make for a good setting now, would it?
Well, I'm going to further point out that Magnus's hubris was always going to lead him somewhere bad.
I think that's true.
He's definitely like the most redeemable, maybe, or the most on a knife's edge kind of the Chaos Primarchs.
As weird as it is, I kind of love the idea that the first redeemed Primarch is Mortarian.
That would be great. Like, I would love to
Yeah.
see that happen. We talked about that in the Isha episode. What if Isha escaped Nurgle's garden? And in at least a couple of versions of that story, we said that Mortarian could have a grand heel turn in that event, which would be pretty cool. Go check out that episode. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Ultimately, I do think that the heresy could have easily been avoided, but I don't think the writers would have wrote that story.
All right. Well, if you want to keep going, go. But I've got one more thing I want to talk about too.
Go for it.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I would like to present my closing argument. And in my closing argument, I only have one piece of evidence. I would like to introduce you to a man called the Emperor. And one of the reasons why I believe, in fact, the greatest reason I believe the heresy was inevitable, is that the Emperor's profound flaws made it a certainty. He's bad father. He built an empire on secrecy and deception and the suppression of the very information about the warp and psychic abilities that could have equipped his sons and everyone to be better prepared to resist chaos. He hid his own nature. He denied everyone the context needed to understand or defend against the threat that would ultimately claim their souls. And the way that he raised his sons exposed them to some very traumatic relationships, let's say, with them and their brothers. And it warped their psychology in ways that he never accounted for, and more importantly, never corrected. A lot of the arguments that Alexis has made is, well, what if he had made a different choice and been a better father? Had he communicated with people? Several comments have been like, well, what if people had communicated with the Emperor, convinced him to change his mind? He never ever showed any interest in any of these things. I want to be very clear. Like the issue with Angron's implants. was solvable. It was a solvable problem, but the Emperor like weighed that and was like, nah, he's more useful to me as a raging berserker, fucking up his legion and everyone he comes across, because that's what I need right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that specific cold logic. This is a leader who built his empire's command structure around all these things, lies and secrecy and unaddressed childhood trauma. It's not he's not just unlucky if the structure cracks. The cracks were built into the foundation from the very, very beginning. I think as long as the Emperor exists, as long as he is who he is in the setting, that there would always be some sort of dramatic civil war that would break out between those who didn't agree with his vision and those who did, whether Chaos is involved or not. Like I'm aware that one of my arguments was that Chaos was playing at the table and their cards were in they were actively engaged in trying to sabotage this whole situation. So I acknowledge that, but I'm going to say, even if you take them out of the picture, the Emperor's own flaws would have made this always on the horizon for the Imperium. Alexis, would you like to cross-examine?
So the only problem that I have with that is that the opportunity for the characters to ever phone their father was never even thought about in the books. So we don't know whether or not the Emperor would have heeded their warnings or not, because those warnings were never given in the first place. If, for instance, Horus contacted his father after he was stabbed and had his visions, if uh, Perturabo phoned back and asked to be the one to fortify the Imperial Palace instead of Dorne, or if he could fortify Seoul instead, was never asked. I think the lack of questioning within the Primarchs themselves has written them into a box where they inevitably fall. So I blame the inevitability of the heresy mostly on the writers for never thinking outside the box or having any of them communicate their feelings to any person in any way, shape, or form. The lack of character development within the heresy is insane, but the lack of open communication with each other is another thing that is also just not there within the heresy. So to say that the Emperor doesn't care isn't really, we don't know, because we only know about how he viewed Angron and he didn't want to lose his tool. Because the more specific thing that is said is that there is a chance that he dies, and it's like, well, he's more useful to me alive than dead.
That's true. You're right about that. The risk, there was a risk even for the Emperor pulling out the nails, the butcher's nails.
And we do know that towards the end of the heresy, the Emperor did view them as his sons. At the beginning of the heresy, he didn't. So if they opened and communicated more with the Emperor himself, there is a good chance that he would have stepped in and stepped up as a father and actually protected them, because he did care about his sons. He had to lose his humanity to kill Horus. He had to disregard that. Hell, he knew where Erda was, and Erda did the greatest betrayal ever to him, scattering the Primarchs potentially, maybe. And yet he never went after her. In fact, he protected her. To say that the Emperor doesn't care is a simple overstatement that falls into the meme category of Emperor Big Dumb, when the Emperor is a very complex character that has to see the future of 1,000 billion humans, well, 1 trillion humans across the entire galaxy, and protect them from the Chaos Pantheon, from a race that obliterated itself. And he's trying his best to hold it all together. And even in his deathless state, as he is right now, he is still trying to send out his hope, his faith across the galaxy in the form of living saints. The Legion of the Damned shows that he does care. They show up to save the day and then disappear. The Emperor is directly involved in the miracles that happen across the galaxy. Whether or not he himself is doing it, or they themselves are doing it via warp powers, is up for debate. But the Emperor does protect. Literally, invoking the Emperor's name sometimes is enough to banish demons. The anathema that is the Emperor is a caring and uncaring god. When Gilliman spoke to the Emperor in the at the end of Plague Wars, spoilers, or during the events of Plague Wars. Uh, wait, was it? No, it was during the Crusade back to Terra. When Gilliman talked with the Emperor did show that his entire mind was shattered. He referred to him as tool, monster, betrayer, and all of this other stuff. But he also referred to him as my only hope, my faith, and actually showed signs of caring about him. So while the Emperor does have to view his subjects as tools, he does care about them. And a good tool is hard to replace.
I must say, Counselor, that is a stirring counter argument. You make some solid points. I think what argue, a lot of the chat has actually mentioned this too, is that a lot of our arguments have come down to like, well, this could happen, and I'm the guy who's saying, well, but would it happen? Right, based on what we know about their personalities. But that having been said, I mean, the capability for growth and change is definitely there, right? We know that's what makes the heresy such a tragedy, is that they could have made better choices, that they could have gone in a different direction.
I mean, in all fairness, every single book in the heresy could be 3 books in themselves with just the topics that are in them if they wanted to explore character development, other characters within it, calls back and forth. I just think that, blanket stating that the Emperor doesn't care, him being profoundly flawed is a big point. Now, the counter argument to this could be that, well, the Emperor is a fascist dictator. They're very stupid. Well, you're correct. And I can't argue against that.
So if I may play a devil's advocate to my own position.
Yeah.
I think your points, the strong points you've made about like what could have happened differently, what could have changed things. I think that's why the story is so resonant, because without, if you look at the Horus Heresy as inevitable, as a thing that is set in stone and would have always occurred, then it's less interesting. I think if you look at the heresy as a tragedy, as a time when everyone made the worst choices, and led to an easily foreseen outcome. Okay, we could argue that. I think that's fair to say. Like, you could foresee the outcome of these events, but it lacks the emotional weight, the gravitas. The strength of the heresy is that it is that massive, tragic events. It's like what I like to compare it to the Trojan War, in that it is a larger than life place where the heroes are bigger than they usually are, and the villains are more dastardly than they usually are. And at the end, you're just sitting there shaking your head, going, "If only, if only." And that's where the heresy is strong as a story. Is that it leaves you walking away thinking, "Man, if only these things had been different." So I think ultimately I will have to come down on your side and say it is not inevitable, because that's the story I like. That's the story that makes more emotional sense to me.
Yeah.
Does that are you? I can't help but feel like the heresy is such a thing. I'm super invested. Obviously, I love the Horus Heresy. It's one of my favorite things to talk about.
I have a controversial opinion about the heresy. I think it's one of the most overhyped things in the setting, and the acts of faith and the sisters are way cooler. Like, I want an entire
fair enough
book series on the Reign of Blood.
Yeah, I'm one of those nerds who puts, like, this is the thing that I will obsess over, is the Horus Heresy. So yeah, go off. Talk about your opinion on it, and why the inevitability or lack of it, what that means to you.
I think the Horus Heresy as a setting really, it shows the evolution of Warhammer as an IP and as a project and as a setting. Because in the original Horus Heresy books, they didn't know what Titans were. which is really funny because Titans weren't really a thing that the writers knew about too much. They just knew they were giant god machines. That's why you have one that's like the size of like twice the size of a building, and it's a warhound, and warhounds are actually really small. Um, they're only like 5-6 stories tall. They're relatively small for giant robots. That's small. Um, I like the that you see the evolution, and I do wish that we had consistent writers across the Heresy. Like Fulgrim as a book is a 5-star book. It's one of the best books in the entire Heresy. Uh, the sequel to it, Reflection Cracked or something like that, is absolutely awful, and it doesn't even connect to the first book and is terrible. Um, you got Horus Rising, which is really good, and then you have like
Battle for
Angel
the
Extermin.
Abyss.
Battle for the Abyss is probably one of the worst in the entire series. You have books that just outright contradict each other, characters that change up so much between books that they're not even the same people, and tons of characters are written exactly the same. The style of writing from Warhammer is very much that. It's very if end style writing where it goes back and forth, back and forth. And I think that that's really it's okay. It's a good series to explain like everything that's happening. But I do wish there was like a big book of canon. Like here's the book of what's canon in in 40K. I would personally love that. I do wish there was more lore about the alien races in Warhammer. I wish there was more lore about how the orcs were reacting during the heresy. Um, yeah, I I like the heresy. Don't get me wrong. I love heresy second edition. I hate third edition. Third edition is terrible. That's why me and my buddies always play second edition. Um, I love the Dark Angels. I love that they're written like closeted homosexuals. I think that's probably the best part of their lore. I and I read that as a bisexual woman myself, so that's just me. I love how they're written. I love that they cover different aspects of character development. Even there very much isn't very much character development compared to like story-driven novels, like the Primarch series, which is in the it's in the Horus Heresy. But when I say the Horus Heresy series, I mean the 56 books that is the Horus Heresy, not the subsequent books or the audio dramas that are also set within that. Um, but yeah, the Horus Heresy is super important to the setting, and I absolutely love it. And it's a constant reminder within the setting that everything that you trust can suddenly change.
Well, I'm a man of a certain age, and I can tell you that back in second edition, the Horus Heresy was like a paragraph, like maybe
Mhm.
2 paragraphs. It was not a particularly long thing, but it was in there to explain why there were Chaos Space Marines and regular Space Marines. Okay, which, as we have discussed in this channel before, is actually due to them wanting to sell more Space Marine figs, so they had a red sprue and a blue sprue, a red sprue and a blue sprue, and they're like, "What if we just made these different factions?"
Mhm.
The real world growth of this of the story is kind of what I'm getting into. Um, so in the beginning, there was just a few paragraphs, and it was wildly speculative. I remember sitting around playing games of second edition 40K with my friends, and we were talking about like, well, how did Magnus fall to chaos? How did Mortarion fall to chaos? Why didn't Sanguinius fall to chaos? It was a Wild West era, and then you had the card game from Sabretooth came out. The card game was an attempt by Alan Merritt and John Blanche to kind of like codify a lot of these things and bring some of that nuance into the Horus Heresy. Talk about why these the Chaos Space Marines might have had a good reason to.
Do you remember when Horus was the captain of his
Oh
legion and not a Primarch, and Primarchs didn't exist for the
yeah,
longest time?
that was that. Yeah, that fortunately that didn't last long. Like Primarchs became a thing pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But
But there's still that image of Lehman Russ fully hooked up to like tentacles and everything.
oh yeah. So then there was the Collected Visions, which I actually have back here, which is all the lore from the card game. And then the novel started coming out in the early 2000s, and yeah, that was a huge change. That them and the Black Books was the first time they really were like, okay, let's dive in fully. We had some the card game and the collected editions had given us some information, given us more depth and understanding of what the 30K setting was like. But when you get Alan Bly and he writes those amazing black books, and you get Dan Abnett writing Horus Rising, and my God, it was like setting the universe on fire. Everybody was like, "Holy shit!" We were starting to actually learn more about this. It had seemed like a thing that Games Workshop was never going to cover until they suddenly did cover it.
Mm-hmm.
And the Heresy has existed through at least one major regime change at Games Workshop. It's existed through different editors in charge of Black Library, which is why you may see some inconsistencies from time to time.
Very much so.
It's an ongoing story. They're still continuing, and they're still developing, and they're still diving in. They're finding every time we do one of these shows, somebody will say something about a book, and I'll be like, "Oh shit, there's something weird that happens in there." Like bringing up the idea that Kurz had gone to people for help. Like, I didn't know that. I hadn't read that book. It's interesting. So the Horus Heresy is like structurally, like the way the story is written, it makes sense that it is inevitable based on the characters and what I feel that they would do, based on the characterization of the main movers and shakers. Alexis made some really, really good solid points though about how things could have gone differently, and in some ways should have gone differently. Like, I mean, we a lot of the decisions don't make sense. A lot of the events that happen are kind of like, well, that was dumb. Why did you do that? However, I think another counter argument can be made here is that you can correlate a lot of that to real world events, real historical conflicts. And you can look back and see that the story of humanity in the real world is a story of dumbass decisions and weird choices, and Napoleon deciding to go to Russia in winter, things like that. It gets we as a species do a lot of dumb shit and dumb things. I mean, just Google Florida Man, for example.
Oh my God, yeah.
Anyway, point being, the Horus Heresy is a fictional event. It did not take place in our history, but it's written in such a way that it feels like it could have. Like, it feels like authentic because it does mirror a lot of the weird and terrible and nonsensical things that we as humans do. It's a great story. I love it. I'm also a fan of second edition over third edition, but I think third edition has got some interesting stuff in it for sure. Oh, there's that picture.
I did want to show this image of Lehman Russ.
Wow.
This is Lehman Russ.
Wow.
And as confirmed, Lehman Russ right here at the bottom.
Yeah, that is got to be second edition or first edition.
This is, I believe, from second edition.
Yeah, that would make sense.
When because he had a miniature and everything. He was just a Space Marine commander. Yeah, but the evolution of the Horus Heresy has been absolutely amazing, and I love it because it's so crazy.
Well, this is our first episode of Lore Court. It looks like the answer from the I promise to let it go to the end, so I'm going to let it go a little bit longer. But so far, 70% of you are saying it was not inevitable, and I think I came around. I think ultimately I've decided to join Alexis and say that it is, in my opinion, not inevitable because it's a better story that way. It works more impactfully that way.
I think the idea of them. Well, okay. So we know that the Imperium can't make the right choices because it's supposed to be a fascist dictatorship. That's kind of what the Imperium is. It's a joke on fascism. That's the satire of the setting. If they make good decisions, the satire is ultimately just gone completely. And granted, we do know that the satire has been going down quite a bit, but more recent history has boosted that back up, and I'm really happy about that. But I just love the idea that all of this tragedy could have been avoided by simply calling their mom.
Well, I mean, a lot of the answers that we've brought up here about like how things could have gone down differently do generally revolve around communication. They do generally revolve around being open to one another and discussing problems rather than letting them fester within yourself. So I mean, that's kind of a lesson of the Horus Heresy. If you're out there and you're like, man, Perturabo sounds a lot like me, go outside, touch grass, and call your mom.
I don't know. I really like this comment right here.
Rosina question says, wait, what if the Emperor made 21 Super Jacaro instead of Primarchs? They could be called the Primonks. The Primonkeys.
In all fairness, me and Victor were talking about Darktide the other day, and they could 100% put a Jacaro in that game.
Oh yeah, there's no question about it. So I don't know if you guys like the format of Lore Court, please let us know, because this is something new that we're trying. Just go check out our Discord. I will put a link to it in the chat. The Discord for the Lorebeards channel is where we do a lot of discussions with fans, and you guys get to learn about things that are coming up before anybody else. It's pretty active. If you want to go join a community, that's how you do it. And if you've enjoyed our deep dive into the grim darkness of the far future, please do us a favor. Hit the like button, the subscribe button. Help us spread our heresy through the algorithm to even more unsuspecting minds. Now, upcoming, I need to make a quick announcement, because we have a winner for next week's show, for Saturday's show. Specifically, our Saturday show is going to be about Arkan Land. 42%.
Oh my god, I get to talk about a monkey.
Yes, Arkan Land has been chosen as our topic of discussion, which is going to be fascinating. I love that dude. And we will be joining you there every Monday. So we do Lorebeards 40K goes every Wednesday and every Saturday from 2 to 5 Mountain Time. And we will be talking about Arkan Land. So I'm looking forward to that on Saturday. What are some other things we need to go over before we close out? Do we have any minis to look at? No? Okay. I believe that Gary Garrison is trying to organize in the Discord for people that want to have us review their armies, to talk about the lore of their characters and armies and stuff. We're happy to do that.
We actually do have some minis to look at.
Oh, do we? Well, why don't we? You want to bring them up?
Yes. All right. So let me grab them really quickly.
All right, so this is the part of the show where we look at some of your minis that you've painted for 40K, and we're going to talk about them, because Alexis is a commission painter. I have been a former Guild Demon judge, and we are able to give you advice on how to do better stuff in the future.
Yes, or just look at really cool miniatures.
Or just look at there are some excellent painters out there. Some really excellent painters.
Okay, so I think I grabbed all of them.
Who would you, in Alexis, in the Horus Heresy, which side would you have been on?
Oh God. Okay. That's a tough one. Because like part of me, you know what? I know what side I would be on. I know exactly what side I'd be on.
You'd be a Slanesh cultist.
No, I'd be fighting right alongside Euphrates Keeler. That's where I'd be. I'd be trying to help her out.
Interesting. I gotta admit, I probably would have gone with Horus. I think the motivation of not wanting to be deleted just because you weren't needed anymore has a lot of strong evidence to support that may have been what the plan was all along. And that's kind of shitty. Like I would not want to have been a part of that. Does that mean I would have been like one of the chanting cultist kind of fodder? I don't know. Maybe. I don't know.
Which Primarch would you like to serve under?
Probably Alfarius.
I'd be right there with my boy Lehman. Like, hell yeah, I'll fight you. I'm gonna lose, but let's fight. So we do have some cool miniatures to look at this week. A couple that I've done and a couple that our community has done. And our community has done an amazing job on miniatures this week. So let's get them on the stage and check them out.
Holy moly. Is that one of yours?
This is one of mine. This is my Keeper of Secrets. This is technically my Soul Grinder, but I'm running it as a Defiler right now. I had to do some base work for her, so that's what I did here.
She's walking on top of a Tau Devilfish.
Yep. So all of my demons have a blood fountain and lake under them, because I love the idea of the demons getting summoned via spilling blood. So a lot of the stuff is very much just
beautiful paint jobs, very vibrant pinks, greens.
Thank you.
The gold sword looks great.
Yeah, my whole faction of Slanesh demons are based around the idea of greed. So all of them are in royal colors, reds, purples, covered in gold, jewels, as much as they can. Yep.
Excessive greed. Yeah, that's cool.
Yep.
There's
But
no
let's get
good thing there's no real world equivalent of that.
yeah, no, that couldn't ever happen in the history of forever.
Woo! These are these some Corsairs or Harlequins?
This is Nestor for Timbers, New Venom, and Yedeth's I don't know how to pronounce that warband. It's a warband of I'm assuming Corsairs.
It's yeah, I'm assuming too. Look, there's a Guardian helmet in the back left that makes me
Yeah.
think Corsairs,
But this one's also a Harlequin.
which
That's
that's
a
fine.
troop.
That's nothing wrong with that. Like
Yeah,
the
exactly.
Corsairs can do these things. We have several episodes about the Eldari Corsairs, including one where we built one. So go check that out if you want to learn more. I like the color scheme here; is very cool. It's rare to see gray used as a base color for something so colorful, but here it really works really well. It creates a great contrast with the greens and the yellows and the reds.
Mm-hmm. These are incredible looking. I like the attention to detail on the jewel here.
Look at the helmet on the ground next to the little lizard.
Yep.
That's awesome. That is a Drukari helmet, I think.
Yep. And this is one of the Escher's little creatures.
Is it? Okay, fascinating.
Yeah. So that's really cool. I like the Gene Stealer head being ripped off by, I'm assuming, their leader, which is
Yeah,
really cool.
that seems like a trophy being held aloft.
Yeah.
That is a good way to mark out a character as being in charge, is if they have a big ass trophy, especially if they're displaying said trophy in their hand. Kind of like the Avatar of Cain with his, he used to have a hand out like that, you know.
Yeah.
I dig it.
Then we got a picture of the Venom itself.
Nice.
Looks very nice.
That's a really good looking vehicle.
Mhm.
I dislike open top vehicles on principle, just kind of like, you are in space, guys. There are you need to
Ross,
have.
that's what the helmet is for.
I know, and it's purely aesthetic.
Yeah.
It always bugs me a little bit, but I realize I am that guy because it's realism. You're trying to put realism to space fantasy. Stop it.
So next up we have Fulgrim. This is another one I painted. I needed to rebase my Fulgrim to actually use them.
Demon
So
Fulgrim.
the paint job, yeah, the paint job isn't about Fulgrim himself. It's more about this base work.
Now this is the 40K version of Fulgrim, Demon Fulgrim, right? This is not the 30K.
This is the 30K version.
Is
of
it?
Demon
Okay.
Fulgrim.
I think the 30K
That's-
version is superior, personally.
Yeah, that's why he's not as wide as the base is. So I had to make sure that his base was the right size and that his wing went to the right height, because I do play tournament Emperor's Children at the moment, and I'm having a lot of fun with them, and I had to make sure I had the right base size. Also, I did see somebody in the chat is talking about where to get bases. Talk to anybody with a 3D printer to print you bases. It is so much easier to just get them printed than buy them.
Etsy is another place to look.
Yep. Here we get the back of Fulgrim, and we get the basing and everything here.
I do feel like you may have missed a little bit with the rattle near the stinger there. Those little bulges near the stinger are kind of reminiscent of snake rattles. I would have gone a slightly different color just to separate them out a bit.
Well,
but
yeah.
It's rare. It's rare that I give you any criticism, so I want to be clear that this, it's a really amazing looking model.
Change that. I might go with a slightly off. I might actually add more black to it.
Okay.
To really go with it. But I love all of this.
Well, the corset laces,
sticking out of them.
The corset laces are that's what kills me. My God.
And then Fulgrim just again. This is again just the base that I'm really focusing on. I just needed a gigantic base. But moving on from my crap.
Hey.
This is
Imperial Fists.
Hellflayer. Finishing up the final details, working on the purity seals. The older models I couldn't. Okay, so these are older models.
Yeah,
and
that's definitely true.
These look to be Imperial Fist base, because this is Lysander's shield and
that's
hammer.
Lysander's shield. Yeah, that's why I'm saying fists.
But they're gold, so they kind of look like they're minotaurs.
I mean, they could be a successor chapter. But they look good. It's gold is tough, but those do not look too bad.
I like your base work. I like the Lightning Claw Thunderhammer combo, so you can run them as either or. Just make sure you
That's
go over it with your opponent prior to doing anything.
that is kind of unique. Okay, I would say the downside of gold is that unfortunately gold does tend to highlight the mold lines and things on the model.
It
So
does,
watch out for that as a suggestion in the future. But you've got a really solid base on these guys. They look pretty great.
and
Gotta
they
admit.
got base work.
Almost.
I mean,
If
you
you
just need to finish the ring.
look at there on the captain is the most egregious one, but yeah, it's very good.
Yeah. I think a black ring here and then just a couple of tufts would really pop this.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
When you
A little bit
use
of green.
gold, you either want green, purple, or blue on that base for the tough colors.
Great
And you want them
contrast.
to look really, really popping.
Yeah, agreed.
These are the older models that they couldn't strip. So this is old Lysander right here.
Why couldn't you
With
strip that?
I'm assuming it's the resin model. So if you try to strip it, it just melts the
Ah,
entire model.
okay, that would make sense. Yeah, if it was resin.
Yeah. But you could definitely see the contrast between their paint jobs. So first versus newer. Like
Yeah,
even the
if
back one right there.
that's a metal Curator captain back there in the middle, with the back
Yeah.
banner. Yeah, this is that's a hell of an evolution. You've done a glow up from the old to the new, my friend.
And technically this is Belial right here.
No, that's I think the Terminator captain. Pretty
Uh
sure.
yeah, it might be. I think Belial has a longer skirt.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I've seen Belial on the field. He's been not great for a long time. Oh my god!
Unfortunately, I can't see much in this picture, so I do apologize. This
Is that an
is
orc? Maybe.
This is posted by Hellflare with no comment, so I
Okay.
am not sure. That does look like
Yeah.
an orc. It looks like an Age of Sigmar orc. I like the colors on this guy in the background because
The
it
Noise Marine.
looks, yeah, it looks very excessive.
That's the special edition Noise Marine back there. And yeah, more 80s figure has never been made.
Yeah. What my friend uses that model as is their Lord Cacophonous, and it works
Yeah.
really well because it stands out and everything. So slap a 40 mil base on that, count it as your Lord Cacophonous. I like the paint job on that. I'd like to see more of this model back here. This is
Agreed.
nice from what I can see. I'm more interested in the Noise Marine. I have a little bit of a bias. So what I see is a orc war boss or some type of orc creature. We have a Vindicari assassin in this one and a death jester.
No, that's a solitaire.
Solitaire, yeah, solitaire. I like the solitaire. Your base rings need to be done up black or any other color, just as long as they're colored. I know a lot of people when they play in tournaments, they do the base ring different colors so that they can match all of their squads together really quickly. So if you have a lot of orcs, one of the things that you can do is go, these orcs have purple base rings. This orc has this, because a lot of the time orc players get all of their boys mixed up and then they lose track of which squad is which.
I just want to remind everybody, we will be closing down the poll here in about maybe 10 minutes. So get your last votes in on the inevitability, because the jury is still out until we close down the poll. But it looks like it's definitely weighted in one particular direction. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm going to dip out for just a minute and I will return if you can hold for it.
Yep. I'm just going to keep looking at miniatures. So this is a Sternguard veteran. You could tell that because he has a skirt and he has a combi weapon. The purple and gold looks pretty nice. I do like it. I like the dirt on the base, on the feet themselves. That's always a good touch. I think I would do up the base ring a different color. That way it pops the basing itself. Aside from that, I really like this. A touch of orange. A tiny, tiny, tiny touch of Wild Rider red. Yeah, it's Wild Rider red or Fugan orange to pop the eye, especially the reticle that's aiming, would do a lot of work here. Overall, pretty good. You do need to fix up the paint here. What I tend to do with these backpacks is I paint this part silver as a way of breaking up the colors. So sad there's no cat cameo. There is always a cat cameo. Kovu. No, he's sleeping. He is. Hang on. He is sound asleep over there. There's my bag of Doritos and all my paints. All right, let's move on from this. Your combi weapon is really good. I would make this blue. I always make the plasma as blue as possible. Like when I do my plasma like that color blue, which I also do my Arctic Iceland water the same color. I also painted up Kievan Strike recently, and yeah, Ethan Sean. Yeah, your base ring just needs to be done up a little bit. Write some scribbles on here. Your leather work is really good. I like that. Now we have a custodian. I do love the new custodians. They look so much better. This is done by Chassis. Chassis? I'm gonna go with Chassis. And this is a custodian, and there's a couple other miniatures here. This is my progress so far. My first 6 models or so were in a group. All right, I like it. Let's dive in, take a look at this. I like the very worn blade here. I would add a bit of a hue to show the power field activating. Do up your ropes here. They're all done in gold. Do them up with a white first. Do Corax white as a dry brush over it to catch it. Then you want to hit it with a Blood Angel. What is it? Hang on, which one is it? It's Blood Angel's red as the contrast to go over it, and it'll look really, really nice for your tassels and everything. Aside from that, you do need to paint your jewels.
Fun fact: the Guardian Spear. There are 6 different varieties of it. Did you know that?
I did not.
And they're so heavy that most normal men cannot lift them, but the custodians swing them around just like they're almost weightless. But there's the traditional Guardian Spear has a built-in bolter, the bolt caster, which is the specific type of bolt weapon that they use. But there's also the Adrathic Spear, the Atari Lance, the Dread Spear, which is the one wielded by the Dreadnoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Surprisingly, the Dreadnoughts wield the Dread Spear. Shocking.
It's crazy to think about.
And they've even got a version of it that they've gifted to the Death Watch called the Vigil Spear, which is pretty awesome. And there's one that has a melted beam called the Pyrithite. Pyrithite? How do you pronounce that?
Pyrite.
Like false gold, I guess.
Yeah.
It's weird. And then there's the Paragon Spear, which is the one only the most distinguished ones carry.
Which it's like also Morven Ball carries.
Right. The Morven Ball has one of those.
Yeah.
Well, hers is a lance, though, right? It's a specific lance.
Yeah, it's a type of lance version of it, but yeah. Funny enough, the lore for the new Custodian Spear that everyone's been pissing and moaning about because it doesn't have a trigger on it is now that it's wielded with a Mind Impulse unit. So all the Custodian has to do is think and it shoots.
That's fascinating.
Mind Impulse units, so much.
I almost want to do a show about technology, talk about things like Mind Impulse units and grav plates, and like, although maybe we could work that into the Ark and Land discussion and talk about the crazy ass technology.
Oh yeah, of course.
That'd be fun.
When it comes to your the cape that you did here, how I always do red capes is you do want them to be a bit dirty. Hit this with a Nuln Oil wash, thin it down just a little bit of water. Okay, tiny bit of water, black all over it. Okay, so just Nuln Oil wash it. Then you take the same color that you base coated it in and dry brush it. Then you take Wesdaka red and you highlight it, or you can dry brush it again, and you get really, really popping capes and everything. It's how I do a lot of my capes. In fact, you can see it kind of on this.
No capes.
Where you got the popping effect.
Mm.
All capes. Everyone needs a cape. Capes are cool.
Okay, so I'll go back to that just a second. I did spot something. So he's got the gold ribbon at the bottom, which is very cool, but he's missing it on the side. See where the thumb is on the hand? There should be a continuation of the gold there. I think. Maybe I'm wrong, but it looks to me like that should have some gold on the trim on the edge.
Then we got from the same person. This is a
Marshal.
Yeah, it's a Marshal
of the Black Templars. Very nice. Fun. That's a good way to do the power weapon effect.
Yep, that's the lightning effect that I even do sometimes. I have to do it on my newest guy. I like what you did with the plasma weapon here, where you have the plasma lighting going over the weapon itself, because it should. It is a light effect. I do like that you have good chain work here. The chain continues over the hand. A lot of people miss that, especially if this is your first couple of models. You did very, very well with this model. I like it. I like it quite a bit. Base work needs to be done, obviously. Do some sketches on your purity seals, and that's about it. And then we have, oh my god, I love this miniature.
That's nice. Look at the fade on the flamer there. That's
Mm-hmm.
really cool. What's the term for the Primaris flamer?
Oh my god, I can't remember. The incinerator, I think.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, these
Nice.
are
Those
apparently
are
their
some very
first couple of
nice.
models.
Damn. That's really good. Look at the salamander on the right for a first model. That's excellent, man.
Yeah, the salamander is incredibly good. I see you had the same problems with the sister and her, where you can't build her leg straight. You actually have to clip the part that is supposed to go in, and yeah. I like the background. That was pretty cool. I like Greyfax. Greyfax is looking good. There's the Marshal again. We get a closer look at them. I like what you did with the helmet. Again, tiny tap of orange on top of the red lens, and you get a nice popping effect. Then we get the back. We get the cape. The cape on this one is better. Again, black wash, dry brush, and that's it.
The backpack looks really good.
This looks incredible. This is, let me see who this is. Darius and his Blood Angel Captain. This is from the Leviathan box. And I like that you took a Blood Angel head for this to make it really Blood Angel-y, because it has the vampire fangs. I really like this. Scrolls could use a little work, but that's fine. Your paint job is very clean. This is really good. Drill out your barrels or blacken them. Do a base ring and you're perfectly good. Like that Tyranid on the base is nuts. This is just
amazing.
really, really well done.
Yeah, who did this one?
Dyrus, I believe the name was.
Bro.
Dyrus.
That's some talent. That looks really good. My only complaint is drilling out the bolts on the bolter. Everything else looks really great. Oh, also the tilting shield needs a little something. It's leaving it blank is a little distracting.
I'm assuming they're gonna put a transfer on it.
Yeah, if this is a work in progress, then it disregard. But it's everything else looks amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Like I am zeroing in on like some absolutely tiny nitpicks because there's very little else to comment on. It just looks really great. Now this is gold. Look at the way the gold is on these guys and the wash and the way that they're highlighted. This is what that the previous guy's gold stuff we were looking at wants to be. Is he wants to get to this level. So yeah, this is a great example of how good gold can look when it's taken to the next level for painting.
This is really good. I have no notes. Like aside from the same thing, like barrel work, maybe blackwash your silvers. That's about it.
Those bare shoulders is the other problem there.
This?
Yeah.
Yeah, they need the blood drop on them, depending on what company they're from.
They need something. I mean, I don't care what it is, just something. I mean, even if it's the Crux Terminatus or a big old, number 1 or whatever you want to put on there, put something on that shoulder pad. But it's God, they look fantastic. Maybe I don't know. There's very little else I can say because everything that is painted is beautiful. Look at the red. That is such a vibrant red.
It kind of looks like the old 80s Blood Angels. Like it's not as orange, but it's up there. But yeah, these look really, really, really good. I really like these. All right.
Nice.
And
yeah, well done.
That does it for the miniatures. Some ridiculously good, well painted shit this week.
So I wore my Star Wars shirt today because I was kind of like, the thematic link of the inevitable rebellion, right, against the Empire. But this was fun. This was our first Lore Court episode. We're probably going to do more in the future. Don't forget to check out our YouTube page where we have polls put up on I think they're under the posts tab on the Lorebeards channel. Alexis, where can people find you on the internet?
So they can find me under Norn Queen Alexis. I am on Twitch. I'm on YouTube. I'm on TikTok. I'm on a whole bunch of things. If you want to see my Viking stuff, you go to my TikTok. If you want to see 40K content, you go to Norn Queen Alexis under YouTube and other stuff like that. If you want to see Kovu, you just have to hang out a bunch, and I'll eventually show you more pictures of Kovu.
So we're in the final 5 minutes of our show. This is a good time to bring the poll to a close. The final result from the jury is a no. The Horus Heresy was not inevitable, 70-30. Thank you guys for participating. I have something I want to show off. You can find me, of course, at twitch.tv/TheRussWatson. I will be broadcasting tomorrow for an AMA or Let's Chat It. Or that's my plan anyway. I've got some cool stuff you can buy if you go to DriveThruRPG. Look for harmless forest creature games. That's where you'll see a lot of my work on. I've got a superhero villain book. I've got a setting called The Cursed, which is dark fantasy Hellboy meets Solomon Kane style for Savage Worlds. Please go check that out if you're at all interested in role-playing game things for your tabletop. We appreciate you guys. We will see you again next on Saturday for sure. And then we have a Lorebeards and role-playing episode for Monday where you can see me and Vera discussing our topics over there on role-playing games. Alexis has been great. I would say as a lawyer, you made some very good solid points, and I hope that I was at least able to coherently provide arguments against.
You did fantastic. I think this went really, really, really well.
Yeah, well, you won the case, so you even brought me around.
That's because I'm amazing and awesome at everything I do in the history of forever. Except for all the mistakes I've made. Those are simply learning opportunities. I'm joking. Ross, it's been great having you, but I have one final thing to say. In the grim darkness of the far future,
there is only lore. Thank you, guys. See you around.
Thank you. Bye.